Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and we're back for some more Rogue Mage, the new Gwent single-player roguelike game, and we will hop into the laboratory here and start up a new run. And for those of you who have been watching on, specifically YouTube in this case, and watching closely at that and being particularly observant, alas, you will know what the results of the previous run was, but, let's just say, it's gonna be pretty apparent pretty soon, because I'm fairly certain we're gonna be talking about it a fair bit over the course of this next run, because, well, we will be looking this time round to hop in here with a Bulwark deck using AGLAIS, because we've done a run successfully with both Reynard and Vids, but we are still looking to finish a run with AGLAIS here. So, of course, her deal is that at the start of the game, she'll boost herself by 3, so she'll be a 6. She's a Zeal Order, so we can use it the same turn that we play her, if necessary, to double the amount of boost that she's received. So she is a great recipient for boosts, which means we have a little less pressure to draw into cards like Trident Infantry and the Eternian Mauler. In these cases, it's the boosts give us extra damage. In this case, the boosts give us extra boosts. But that's going to be the name of the game here. Whereas these guys, the other key cards for Bulwark were ones that were giving extra boosts. AGLAIS is a boost receiver. As for what we'd like to do with our spells here, I'm thinking I do like Masterful Thunder to try to deal with high priority threats on our opponent's side of the board, and Cleanse certainly makes a lot of sense with a Bulwark deck with several cards that we're going to want to try to get as many boosts on as possible. Time Warp, in theory, for consistency's sake, is useful, because if, for example, we find ourselves with a whole bunch of boosting cards but no ideal boost recipients, then puts us in a bit of an awkward place, so Time Warp could potentially help us correct that a bit. On the other hand, it doesn't directly lead to any points, so sure, it's cheap from a energy standpoint, but it's... if we find ourselves already in a lot of trouble and we need to, make up for what is turning out to be a pretty significant deficit, then at most, Cleanse is worth 3 or really 6 points if we're putting it on a card that can double the value from the boosts like AGLAIS. Or in the case of Masterful Thunder, I mean, it's a little bit variable, of course, with that damage range between 4 and 8, and also maybe we get some overkill damage and trigger that death blow, so, realistically, maybe 8 damage, but that is really speculative. Probably more something along the lines of 6 or so. So my point is, if we find ourselves in very much behind in a match and it's getting late, then it's going to be hard for us to catch back up. It's one thing to protect a lead and, keep our boosting engines and boosting recipients alive with things like Cleanse, but if we are behind and it's late and we need something dramatic to turn the tables of the encounter, then perhaps something other than Time Warp may be preferable. Something like Portal we used for that purpose in the past, and I think we abandoned it a little bit with some other decks, but maybe that is still a good fit here in the last spot. It does mean that it is a very high energy set of spells we find ourselves using here, but I would hope that with some good execution we won't need to be spamming these all that often, and therefore, it's not going to be as if we're going to blow through all of our energy in the first 1 or 2 encounters. Hopefully not, at least. We do have Masterful Cleanse, which could be an alternative to normal Cleanse here. This boosts all allied units by 1, so the total amount of boost you could receive from this is technically 18. That's the maximum number of units you can have on the board at one point in time. So the high end is higher, but for the most part, we have very specific cards that we're trying to boost, and that's why Cleanse is probably still preferable, and as we were just saying, this is already a pretty expensive mix of spells, so making our cheapest spell cost twice as much is probably not something we're looking to do right now. So as for our Flask, I am still a big fan of the Archmage's Flask, I think, especially because we're looking at what is a fairly expensive energy setup for our spells that is probably worth doing. We got rid of a spell that would have helped us for consistency, so Confiscated Oils, I suppose there's a bit of a case for that reason. The upgrading all of our cards, helps get some of our engines out of removal range, which is kind of useful, and is, in theory, directly worth points in every encounter without spending energy, whereas this one, is not an automatic empowerment. It's only assisting you if you do choose to use the energy. Then move to random bronze units. This is perhaps a little bit safer than it would be with other Bulwark decks, because in the past for Bulwark, we've been very reliant on directing those boosts toward Trident Infantry and the Eternian Maulers to double up the value of those boosts. They're bronze cards, so if you opt to go for the Hunter's Cocktail and you miss out on one or maybe two of your boost recipients, and you only have one remaining, then you could be in a whole lot of hurt, because if you don't draw to that one specific card, then your deck is about half as powerful as it would otherwise be. So since we have AGLAIS, who is absolutely not going to get removed by Hunter's Cocktail because she is not a bronze card, that's perhaps a little bit safer and would improve our consistency significantly. Again, there's still a question of, what are we going to lose? If we lose a couple of recruits, that'd be great. If we lose, a Temerian Drummer, that would be considerably less great. Or at the start of the battle, boost a random unit in your hand by a random amount between 4 and 8. If that happens to be AGLAIS, that could be worth twice as much as that, potentially 16 points, which is the highest value out of all of these, besides maybe Archmage Flask if you happen to get 16 points out of 25 energy, which is actually, you look at it that way, it is technically, I think, still the highest point total. I mean, unless it's hard to put an exact value on consistency, but I think we do still stick with this. Okay, and I think we found that this is not a bad mix of cursors here, so let us begin. So as I said, if you were observant, you technically will already be able to surmise what the outcome of the previous run was. And we do see that we are missing the green mutagen, and so we do find ourselves going up against the swamp monster here. I do think I remember seeing AGLAIS. The upgrade for her is quite useful because as things currently stand, you want to play her early, much like you would any other boosting recipient card, like a Trident Infantry, like an Eternian Mauler, so that you can pour on the boost with your Temerian Drummers, and that way, by the end of the match, that order ability will be significantly stronger. The problem with that is that by playing AGLAIS early, there's lots of time for our opponent to mess with her in some way, shape, or form, so she is vulnerable in that way. So if, however, we upgrade her and make it so that at the start of the game, boost up by 3, that's the same, and Zeal Order, double the amount of boost, that's the same, but while in hand or in deck, boost self by 1 whenever you play a card, a way to get her boosted when she's not on the board. Means that we can play her late, it probably won't be worth quite as much. Well, I mean, she's getting 1 boost per turn from a Temerian Drummer and 1 boost per turn while she's in hand, then it's functionally the same thing. She's just substantially safer when she's in our hand. So then we can use her as our very last play, use the order immediately because she has Zeal, and that just means unless our opponent can counter her with their very last play, she is safe. So at least in that way, it would be nice to upgrade AGLAIS. Of course, curious to see what comes after that upgrade. But we do have an early elite battle, which could be a way for us to prioritize doing just that. Then we have not a lot of elite battles after that. Usually there's an elite battle before treasure chests, it feels like, but not this time. Then this one here, is that it? Oh, wow. Okay. 2 elite battles in quick succession over here with, oh, that's nasty. Wow, okay, so if you go that route, it's place power here, then treasure chest, nice. Events, maybe you're getting energy, but probably not. Elite battle, elite battle. Event, maybe you're getting energy, but if anything, it feels like you're losing energy in those encounters, or just energy neutral, and then you're going to the boss. So my point is, it's a lot of energy you're probably going to spend for these elite battles, and no guaranteed way to get that energy back, so I'm skeptical that we would choose to go this route. But we might choose to go this southern route, where we can get at least 1 more elite battle, and still hit a place of power here. Oh, and we actually almost didn't even see this path here, but if we wanted to, we could go events, or we could go battle events. But I do like that southern route, which means if we're working backward from there, place of power probably would take that over this battle, and then looking to do that, that means we can't go here. Ooh. Can we go you? So we go here or here, here. Here, here. Gonna miss this. Here. 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 Back up north here. I think that's the route. Just take a quick look up north. More places of power, but no elite battles. I mean, if we found ourselves really not liking the elite battles, then perhaps we can cut it a little bit, or go an easier route by going that northern pass. Well, let's go here. Of course, we have our initial battle. We need to finish first.
Pass or head. Your choice.
Okay, so we have at least one boosting target, so we'd like to keep the Adurning Mauler here. You're just a damage opponent. You can create an additional copy of something with Ramon. We'd probably like for that to be the Temerian Drummer. Recruit is probably our worst card, so let's dump that. Okay, 2 Adurning Maulers can be okay, but it's not always the best because it can be difficult to boost both of them up. We will be able to create 2 Temerian Drummers because we have the initial one and the one from Ramon, so it's not terrible to go that route, but also, what I'd Betsy, yes, she is a gold, but she's not as synergistic with some of the other stuff we're looking to do with this deck, so we might even opt to get rid of her. And Senis could help us to load up on more boosts toward the end of the match on an Adurning Mauler. Recruit, we do draw into it, but I think first play is definitely still going to be Ramon. Create this Temerian Drummer. So we'll start by boosting him, but it will, of course, be an Adurning Mauler. We'll put him between these two on our next turn. We're going to try to target this guy. As we said, they're a damaged deck, so one thing that I think we need to be careful of. What's up, Honora? How are you? How's it going? One thing I think we need... not another recruit. That we need to be careful of with this deck is that we start weak, but we build up a lot of power over time. So at the beginning of a match, we are vulnerable. We are susceptible. If they start doing a bunch of damage like this, they may have enough to destroy some of the cards that we're really focusing on the boost for. See, this is what we don't want. We have Adurning Mauler, another Adurning Mauler, and Trident of Infantry. Great cards. We love to boost them. On the other hand, having 3 of them in our hand means that there's only so many boosts we can give them. So it's going to be really tough to boost them all in the same match. So, you could maybe take your pick. Do you prefer to do a bunch of damage to one card with the Adurning Mauler, or do you split that damage across multiple cards with Trident of Infantry? Maybe you're not removing something, but you have lower risk of having overkill damage in this case. So that is something to at least consider. I think either way we are likely looking to go another drummer here and putting in another boosting recipients in between these two. Is it going to be the Trident of Infantry? Is it going to be another Adurning Mauler? We will see. Yeah, that's a fair bit of damage there, and it takes out one of our boosters. That's not good. So that's, again, what I said, is early on we're vulnerable before our cards get boosted. Now, we didn't opt to boost up the Temerian Drummer, and these are not going to get boosted by themselves because they're not usually our boosting recipients. We get another boosting target. So this is the problem. We have 4 boosting targets, and we only have the drummer that we've lost, this drummer, and 2 recruits and Stennis, to a lesser extent, but all that is to say that there is reason to potentially prioritize using our energy, our spells, early on in the match, as because I was saying at the very beginning, before we started this run, we are not good at catching our opponent if they start to pull ahead. So we need to be proactive about this stuff. Currently thinking if you should get up or stay put because of a sleeping cat. Oh, do you have a sleeping cat that's just like resting on top of you right now? We get another Temerian Drummer. Okay, that's huge. That's really helpful.
Left, right, left, right.
And for what it's worth, we do not have any damage cards right now, which means this on-crate Warcrier is not getting boosted, so that is nice. We could potentially destroy it, or something else.
Could I borrow a whetstone? Maybe 10.
But all these cards have done their thing. This is the only engine they have at the moment, and it is actually going to get boosted at the end of this turn. This Temerian Drummer is going to start taking damage. We're no longer drawing cards, so this is what we're going to get. We have Oof. And the only way we're getting a boost on you is if we boost you with Recruit or Stennis. Likewise with AGLAIS, or we replace the boost on someone else. So maybe what we do here is we do use this Eternity Mauler order ability a little bit on the early side without doing too much setup. Just get rid of this War Crier, because as I said, it is going to get boosted at the end of this turn once this Temerian Drummer becomes damaged. And then we no longer need this to get boosted, so we replace it with a different card that we would like to get boosted, either this Eternity Mauler or this AGLAIS. So, and they don't seem to have that much in the way of engines, so that makes me think that Eternity Mauler is not that crucially important, so maybe we do go AGLAIS.
Lie still. You've not yet recovered.
And so again, this is an important card. At the moment, it's just 6 power, so there's something to be said for boosting it early so it is not going to get destroyed before we have the chance to actually set it up. So it is weak at the moment. Something to grab from the table, but no.
And to think I get paid for this. Don't try it, you little bitch of the woods.
Okay, this guy actually has not used his order ability yet, so that would have been a card we could consider going after with an Eternity Mauler if we had opted to boost that, but alas, we've not. So I think at this point, I mean, we'll perhaps get one down just for the sake of getting one down. This Temerian Drummer is going to drop pretty low and may get destroyed, but it's an 8-point deficit. Don't have too much margin for error here. AGLAIS is going to get bigger at the very end. She is a bit of a bursty source of points. But other than that, I mean, we could load up on other boosts on her with things like Recruit and whatnot. We could actually use the Recruits to... we can't play Eternity Mauler in our last turn. I was going to say, keep Eternity Mauler in our hand and guarantee we get at least the one hand boost on the Recruits onto this Eternity Mauler, so even if it's not getting the boost from people on the board, it's at least getting some additional value on this order, but because it doesn't have Zeal, we can't do that. It's not going to have time to use the ability. So, and we can do that a little bit. See if we happen to luck out. We could even opt to use this to power up a Temerian Drummer and see if it can stay a little bit safer. Which I'm considering doing. AGLAIS is worth more points. Short term, certainly. But if we lose this Temerian Drummer, let's see. It's actually about the same if this Temerian Drummer gets destroyed immediately. And also it, well, we got rid of their War Crier, so it's not like the Bloodthirst matters here, having a damaged unit. So that did prevent you from getting damaged. But we are now, or being damaged at the time they ended their turn, but now it is, once again. So yes, it would have been destroyed had we not just boosted it from this Recruit. And Eternity Mauler did receive that hand boost, so that is useful. And so now, I think that means it's Recruit, then Mauler, then Stennis last. Again, to hopefully get the hand boost on you when we do this. And this time round, I mean, we could once again opt to boost you, or we could say we want to get AGLAIS as big as possible. I think we go AGLAIS this time. This time the hand boost went to Stennis. That's, again, not preferable, but no, we got one of them at least. That is going to destroy you. We pretty much accepted it at this point that was going to get shut down. But now it is Mauler, who has at least gotten a little bit of boost.
When I do the tenderizing, there's nothing left to fry.
Okay. How many damage units on there? Just one. So we're trying to get rid of Temerian Drummer, which didn't have any more, or rather a Tribal Infantry, which didn't have any more setup. So that's actually kind of okay. Then, do they have anything that's a high priority to get rid of with you? Not really. We just have 2 damage, so, you know, hit whatever you'd like here, really. And then, well, we could use Stennis to either load up on AGLAIS, spread the boosts around, but we really only have 2 targets we want to boost. So I think the answer is probably AGLAIS. Otherwise, this goes up to 6 damage ability. They don't have any 6 damage car, or 6 power cards. They're 5 power with 1 armor, but that's still only 5 points of value, so it is most valuable to go maximum boostage on AGLAIS.
Fear is a commoner's trait.
So when we use her, she's going to double her boost, so right now she's starts at 3, but has been boosted up to 14, so she's a plus 11, which means when we use this, she's going to gain another 11, like so. And then just go Eternity Mauler on whatever, really. And that's all we can do unless we use a spell here. We have a 28-point advantage. We're going to lose 1 point to the bleed, but gain 1 from the drummer. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. That feels like that's sufficient. Oh, it's also that damage as well, but looks like we'll be fine.
Well, what is it?
Okay, so first encounter done, and no energy needed to be spent, so that's always a good sign. And let's see what we can add. Damage, which does not necessarily synergize with our deck, but it is nice to be able to get rid of our opponent's high priority cards. Selkirk, who, this I believe is the first time we've ever seen him. He duels an enemy unit, which means that basically he takes turns dealing damage to an enemy unit, and then that enemy unit deals damage back to him, which sounds like, well, why is that useful? They're both going to damage each other, and on net, that's not worth any points, right? Not exactly. It's actually incredibly strong, because the order of operations here. Selkirk hits the opponent first. So, for example, if Selkirk has 5 power and your opponent's unit has 5 power, Selkirk hits first with his dual ability, deals 5 damage because that's how much power he has, and immediately destroys that 5 power unit. So it would hit back if it still existed, but it doesn't anymore, so it's just a pure 5 damage. And obviously if you boost up Selkirk even more than that, that means you get even more damage, and even if your opponent has a much bigger unit than that, like say Selkirk's still at 5 power, but your opponent has an 8 power card, you duel that unit, and Selkirk starts by dealing 5 damage, which means your opponent's unit takes 5 damage, drops down to a 3, and then that 3 power unit hits the 5 power Selkirk, drops it down to a 2, and then Selkirk hits back on that other unit for 2 until somebody dies. And so even if you are targeting a stronger unit than Selkirk, you can actually still deal a lot of damage, and in some cases still win the duel, so to speak. So he's another boosting recipient. He's kind of like the Eternian Mauler in that the boosts give us additional damage, and in particular, damage against one specific enemy unit, unlike the Trident of Infantry, which spreads out the boosts across multiple cards. And then Svalbard Priest deals damage to one of our cards by 1, and then boosts itself by 2. So on net, it is still gaining 1 point per turn. So it is a boosting card, yes, but the way that it works is kind of funky. And there are some enemies, including the one that we just saw, that can benefit from us dealing damage to ourselves, so I'm not totally thrilled about that. Dump Eternian Mauler, which, as we were saying, we have a few extra, or at least one extra, boosting recipients in this deck because AGLAIS is one. So, and we actually saw us drawn to every single one of them in that previous match, which was not something I was thrilled about, and that's perhaps a reason against including Selkirk. He is a really strong card, though, so I think we will opt to take him, but it does mean that if we find that option in the future to potentially get rid of the Eternian Mauler, then we might choose to go that route. And I think we had established that we wanted to go treasure chest up here, probably elite battle. Though if for some reason this normal battle goes horribly wrong and we spend a bunch of energy and we don't want to do that, then we could opt to go this event instead. So I think that's the plan. Now let's see what we get here. Okay, so Necromancer's Tome. Play 2 units from any graveyard, either yours or your opponent's. If both graveyards are empty, spawn a K20 Revenant on each allied row, which means that's 2 Revenants, 3 power each, so 6 power, and they each have a 1 damage order ability. So 4 points if you happen to get the death blow on that order ability, then that means that you can spawn in more Revenants and have a chain reaction there. But we're not really a damage deck, so I think that'd be hard to benefit from the K20 Revenants all that much. And, we'd probably be waiting to play units from our graveyard or our opponent's graveyard, and that's still not super likely to happen if we are not dealing much damage. We're not going to destroy many of our opponent's cards. And if we are boosting our cards, then it's going to be harder for our opponent to destroy our units. So, I mean, yes, it's still possible to benefit from it, but it'd be a little bit tough. Leave Runic Disc, spawn and play 3 random bronze units. It's a lot of RNG, but, I mean, across 3 separate units, chances are you're still getting pretty solid value there. Just hard to plan around it. Pit Fighter starts in our hand, upgrades self by 3 each time we defeat an enemy, and by 6 each time we defeat an elite enemy, maybe delete it. And the earlier you get this guy, the better. because that means the stronger he becomes. At the beginning, he is a bit of a hindrance. At just 5 power, and no other abilities that directly affect his performance in a match, he's very weak. So you'd probably mulligan him, because he's guaranteed to start in your hand. But on the other hand, by the end of a run, assuming even if you haven't necessarily made a point to going after as many battles and as many elites as possible, he's still going to be worth a lot of points. And he's nice in that he doesn't require any setup in that case, because your setup is winning those previous matches. So you could, for example, play him on your very last turn, and he might be, a 15-point card or more. And so that's a nice option to have, especially in a deck like this, where most of our cards need to go on the board early and gain value over time. They start quite weak, so if you play them on your last turn, they're not going to help you all that much. So it does help cover for what would otherwise be one of our bigger weaknesses. So there's something to be said for that. There is something to be said for that. We've not yet taken him. I think we might do. I think we might try it. We'll give it a shot. Alright, and so now it is an event. Ooh, unstable place of power. Find an unstable place of power. Considering its condition, drawing energy from it could be dangerous. We can gain 1 to 100 energy, but gain 2 wounds, or we can leave. So the thing is, we have maximum energy right now, so this is quite literally useless to us. So why gain energy and just add counterproductive cards to our deck when we can just leave? Also, remember from previous encounters here, the music, the background music that you can kind of hear, just continues to raise in pitch. And it's sort of like, does it reach a crescendo at some point? Nope. No, it doesn't. We know full well the dangers of the unknown. Also, we know that there's nothing that we could benefit from doing, or nothing we could benefit from receiving from that. So deciding not to risk it, you leave the place of power and continue on your way. So, wasn't bad, but it also definitely wasn't good either. It was precisely nothing from that event. So I think we're still looking to go battle here, and then depending on how that goes, how we're feeling, we may hop into this elite battle soon thereafter. Or if we feel like that's not a good idea, then we can bail and go for this event instead. Would like to do this to get the AGLAIS upgrade, but we'll see. Alright, it's Gladiator, which is oftentimes one of, if not the first, oftentimes the first enemy that we've encountered. Okay, so we do draw into, of course, the Pit Fighter that we just guaranteed we'd draw into by picking him up in the previous encounter. As I said, especially early on before he starts receiving those upgrades, definitely going to want to mulligan him because he's 5 points and no other abilities of value to us. So get rid of him, and we find ourselves once again in the same situation we found ourselves in the previous match, which is we have 3 cards that we want to be our boosting recipients, and we have 2 cards to do the boosting, but that is not a balance that we particularly like here. So we'd like to be, technically it's 3 and 2, it can't be much more balanced than that, right? Yeah, sort of. So do we settle for this? Or do we try to maybe swap out Trident Infantry and see if we can get something else, like a Temerian Drummer or a Ramon to create a second Temerian Drummer? Maybe we go that route, and then we swap out 1 boosting... Oh my goodness, what the heck? This is what I mean. Boosting recipient. Boosting recipient. Boosting recipient. Boosting recipient. Single card that boosts over time, and then 1 card that boosts in 1 big burst that we play once and then doesn't really benefit us after that. So we really need more Temerian Drummers here, and as I said when we picked up Selkirk, we would perhaps like to remove some cards like a Durnian Mauler, because if these guys don't have any setup, then, it's actually worse than, he's 5 points, so he's same as Pit Fighter if he has no setup. So, doesn't benefit us much if we don't have the boosts. So, also this guy is, I remember, damage enemy unit by 2, and one of their units by 2, and then give a shield to one of their units. Likes to play the Redanian Knight on the first turn, which is a card that has 2 armor, and then when it loses its armor, it deals, I think in Rogue Mage, 3 damage to one of our units, which means that the 3 damage from that and the 2 damage from the ability directly means they can deal 5 damage in a turn. if they do that combo, which means that many of our cards here would get destroyed in one hit from that. So whatever we play is likely to get a cleanse, just to keep it out of removal range. So why don't we go... I think we might want to go Selkirk first. In Gwent's Gwent multiplayer, he is row locked to the melee row. He only uses this ability in the melee row, so I'm probably, out of force of habit, going to be playing him in the melee row, even if he doesn't necessarily need to be there. Okay, the other thing is they do have some shield synergies. This guy gets boosted when he loses his shield. So I also put the reason why I opted to put Selkirk down first was because I thought we might potentially be able to remove one of their higher priority cards, one that this could get quite powerful over time if we're not careful, because they can, every other turn, apply a new shield and remove that shield, which means every other turn they can guarantee they're boosting him by 2. So we don't yet have a way to get rid of that shield, unless we go, perhaps even an Adurnian Mauler here. Damage you, remove the shield, it'll get you up to an 8 though, so then Selkirk is not big enough to take you out. Tricky. Could go Stannis, which is a booster, so that is nice. Go melee row Stannis on Selkirk. And then, if you remove the shield, you do have enough damage to get rid of you. Maybe that's the play.
Could have settled this amicably, you know.
Well, that's Onsace. He's another dueling card.
On guard! A duel! To a duel!
These are, the only two? The only 2 dueling cards in the game. Yes. So, it's kind of fitting. But, for what it's worth, dueling is amazingly powerful if you have a shield. But, we don't have that. And we lost our way to get rid of your shield, which is unfortunate. Because, yes, we could go Trident Infantry, boost you with a cleanse, hope that it hits you, remove your shield in the process, but it gets you up to an 8, and we don't have the damage to remove you at that point. So yeah, the fact that they were able to remove our Adurnian Mauler there did shut down what was going to be our plan for getting rid of this guy who could have been, and may still be, a bit of a threat here. So it's actually going to make this single target damage from units like Selkirk rather difficult to pull off. There's the Redanian Knight, so they may still opt to do the combo that I was talking about before with this. No. They decided to instead go more all in on this Kidwani cavalry. Ooh. Redanian Knight is destroyable with One-Eyed Betsy. So if they keep the armor on this, it will get boosted by 1 every turn. So this is a card that gains value over time. This is a card that, if it continues to gain and lose shields, will gain value over time, although we've established this is difficult to deal with. I think we shut this down. Okay. So 1 less engine to deal with there. They did poke Selkirk, so he's not as strong as he would have otherwise been. I mean, we can get rid of Onsace, but he's already done his thing, so he's not really a threat. It's still a little bit overkill damage there. So not loving that. Also not loving that... I mean, yes! Although... okay, no, it's boost, it's boost. This got reworked in Gwent's multiplayer to deal damage. And so I saw the 6, and I was like, are they about to destroy Selkirk? Fortunately, they are not. Love the Temerian Drummer. We really need these right about now. We really need these. So let's play you.
Left.
And so right now, for example, if we use Selkirk on Onsace, what would happen would be we deal 6 damage to Onsace. Onsace would go down to a 4. Onsace would hit us for 4 damage, dropping us down to a 2. We'd hit Onsace for 2, dropping him from a 4 down to a 2. He'd hit us for 2 and destroy us, so it'd be a total of 8 damage, and we'd lose Selkirk. So just getting a few more boosts on him can fundamentally change how this exchange works here. So the math on the duels can be a little bit tough to figure out. But just remember that it starts with you dealing damage to your opponent, and then they go back and forth, hitting each other until somebody gets destroyed. And each time somebody gets hit, their next time they hit back is weaker because they got their power reduced from the other person on the other end of that duel. So I am a little bit tempted to use more cleanses here just to try to keep our Temerian Drummers alive, because they are very important when we have so many cards that we want to apply the boost to. and not that many ways to do the boosting. So, that being said, that's why I put this Temerian Drummer next to the other Temerian Drummer, and I am hoping that will suffice, and especially because we have... And this gives more shields, especially because we have an elite battle potentially coming up soon. We would like to make a point of saving energy if we can. So on one hand, it'd be nice to put a boosting recipient here, either a Trident Infantry or an AGLAIS. On the other hand, if we put someone else in between these, then this Temerian Drummer becomes much more removable. So, don't love that. I think what we'll actually do, we'll go Temerian Drummer, or rather, we'll go Trident Infantry here in between these two. We'll put a AGLAIS here, and then we'll use Zoltan in between these two to boost up both Selkirk and AGLAIS, because AGLAIS, we can theoretically do a big burst of boosting toward the end of the match, whereas Trident Infantry really needs to get little boosts over time to maximize the value out of him. So we will do this, but their damage could continue to be a bit of an issue for us. And they've surprisingly been big enough that it's been hard to use Selkirk here effectively. That's a little more damage. And that is almost dead. For once you are shieldless, means it is really tempting to try to target you here, which could mean... Let's see. So in this case, we hit you for 6, you are a 6, you hit us for 6, we get destroyed. So that doesn't really work very well for us. We need to have a little more boosts on you. If it were 3, we'd be a 9. We hit you for 9, you drop down to a 3. You hit us for 3, we're a 6. We hit you for 6, you're dead. So 3 points of boost is the difference between us winning this duel by a significant margin and us losing the duel. And that's what I mean by it is quite sensitive to the boosts. A little bit can make a huge difference. So is that something we want to do here? On the other hand, I was just saying we might want to wait until we have a AGLAIS down there so we can put a Zoltan next to those two and benefit additionally. But, I mean, we could put a AGLAIS here instead and then just put a AGLAIS... or we could do that and then put a AGLAIS here and have a AGLAIS be boosted by the Temerian Drummer instead. Maybe that's the play. Yeah. Let's go recruit now. Or we could do Zoltan. We could do Zoltan, and that would boost you up, which, although you don't benefit directly from receiving boosts, it gets you more out of removal range, which is not a terrible idea, because this might get destroyed. So I think we might actually do this. It will give you a bigger boost, which means at 10 damage, you're going to deal 10, you'll be at 2. And when you hit Selkirk back, you'll drop him down to an 8, but that's not a huge deal. So there's the duel. Now you're receiving boost, but we won't have it that way for long. You do have a card you can destroy, for what it's worth. So you do get extra value there. We suspected that might happen, but now what we'd like to do is use a AGLAIS here next to this Temerian Drummer, where it can actually be a card that benefits from receiving boosts next to our booster. Then it's going to be Recruit, which will boost Stennis in our hand, and we'll use that to boost either AGLAIS, probably AGLAIS is worth the most, and finish with Stennis. Big boost directly on AGLAIS, and AGLAIS is our big finisher. So that's the plan. Is that enough, or do we feel like we need assistance of additional spells? What's up, Zerfidius? Yeah, leaving Selkirk unused is risky, especially in a damaging deck like this. They did hit him several times. Our Selkirk would have been worth a lot more value had he not gotten weakened on several prior occasions. But, so that's why I think that's another reason why using him a little bit early was perhaps the safer option. And because now he's no longer a card that we need to boost, and so it gives us a more obvious place to put a AGLAIS. So, do we need additional boosts on her, though? I think we can afford one. Just to play it safe. Just to play it safe. We'll throw one on there. Just remember, every boost on AGLAIS is actually worth 2 points.
For Redania, for its glory!
Okay, so now we go Recruit, and this will also be a way to boost AGLAIS.
New orders? No.
And boost on Stennis, and then Stennis will go melee row for another AGLAIS boost, and we'll use her order building on our last turn to maximize the value from that. I assume they're going after AGLAIS here, they should. Oh no, they're boosting themselves. But now, let us melee row Stennis.
Or Royal Majesty.
So AGLAIS is boosted by 13, so she'll get a 13-point boost. Which means, I mean, we could have, if we felt necessary, used another cleanse there to make that order building slightly bigger, but I'm feeling pretty good about our advantage here. Yeah, it's Ragnar who gains power from their shields. They only have one right now, so that is not a big deal. Oh, they had two? Still, no worries. All right, so Gladiator taken care of. We used a little bit of energy to get the job done there, but don't think it was enough to be that big of a concern. Okay, so we have armor, damage, card that actually creates a copy of itself, and that both copies are cards we can somewhat easily get boosted with Thrive whenever we play a higher base power card, but we don't have very high base powered cards in this deck, because most of them start weak and build value over time. So this might be the right opportunity for us to try to remove a recruit. I think it's definitely worth it. I think that is definitely worth it. That was our weakest card. Just thinking about maybe getting rid of one of our boosting targets just because we have so many of those, and as we've seen on 2 prior occasions already, we can certainly find ourselves getting loaded up with too many boosting recipients and arguably not enough boosters. Suppose we still always have our leader ability, our cleanse that we can use to boost if absolutely necessary. So now the question is, how do we feel about jumping into this elite battle? We haven't really powered ourselves up all that much, but we have a very solid source of energy right now. And even after this, if we do need a lot of energy to make it happen, we can restore some of that with this Place of Power. We'll have several battles after that. I mean, like, oh. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 events that may give us energy, may make us lose energy. And then elite battle. So that's 6 battles in a row with no place power to potentially restore energy. That's a little scary. Place power after this elite, but at that point, you know, are we going to have the energy to take this guy out? And we are 100% forced down this path at this point. It isn't until after the elite battle that we can ever so slightly change course. So, okay. It's not great. Not great. Wish we could just, you know, backtrack ever so slightly to nab this one as well. But, you know, that's maybe reason enough to not do the elite battle, but we'll give it a shot here. We'll give it a shot. Who do we get?
Don't even think
It's the Mage Hunter. She, despite being a Mage Hunter, doesn't she use non-stop spells? Just rather ironic. She's the very thing that she swore to fight. Wait, hold on. Is Maxi? Okay, this is what I get for not reading the flavor text. It only just occurred to me that this is Maxi von Nekker, which is a card in Gwent multiplayer that does not look like this. But I somewhere, might have been on Discord somewhere, I heard someone talking about Maxi in Rogue Mage and how she was a really difficult enemy, and I was like, that's weird. I don't remember seeing Maxi in Rogue Mage. I would have thought that I would remember her if I had seen her, especially if she was such a difficult enemy. We have encountered her. She just looks different. So, and it's only her first name, not her last name, so that also led me a little bit astray. But okay, now it's clicking. The light bulb moments. Okay, so it is, in fact, Maxi von Nekker, the tough as boots bounty hunter, whom no spell could harm. Said actually, is she? I don't think she's in the Witcher games, or if she is, I might have missed her, or she's minor enough that I forgot her. But is she in the books? Because, or is she totally made up for Gwent? Is this no spell could harm her thing? I'm curious if that is legit, or if that's just rumor. Most folk believed this daughter of the Black Sun to be cursed. What all this seemed to amount to was an incredibly thuggish demeanor. It's all coming together. Exactly. It's all coming together. So she has a bunch of spells, many of which I believe deal damage, and some of which start off weak the first time she plays them, but then there's at least one I thought I remembered that it basically says, you know, deal this small amount of damage, but if you've already played this card, then deal more damage. If you play this card multiple times, then deal a ton of damage. So it builds up. And so Kind of similar to us in that she starts weak but gets stronger over time. But it does, I think, still mean we want to be proactive, make sure that we protect our cards that need some time to build that power. And this is going to be a bit of a recurring theme, isn't it? Boosting target. Boosting target. Damage. Card that can create a copy of another boosting target. Card that still needs additional setup before we feel okay about playing it. You know, things are not looking great when you can't get rid of the recruit because it is arguably the most important card in your hand. That's generally not a good look. That's generally not a good thing. Okay, so I am not sure we're going to use One-Eyed Betsy here because we have single target damage with Selkirk and some more indirect damage with Trident Infantry. Yes, this is quicker and requires no setup to pull off, but on the other hand, we are pretty desperate for getting more boosting cards, and that is not one of them. Facepalm! Ah, why? Boosting target, boosting target, boosting target. Card that we try to get rid of because we don't want to play it until it gets more powered up. One thing that boosts our other cards, but it is our weakest card in our deck. Thing that can create another copy of weakest card in our deck that is at least capable of boosting stuff. So this is why we threw things like Portal in for our list of spells, because otherwise this would be rather difficult to make up for this unfortunate situation in which we currently find ourselves. So, how do we get ourselves out of this mess, you ask? Great question. Very, very good question. Probably play one of our boosting targets and then use a cleanse to boost it up a little bit so that it's not going to be immediately in removal range. Spawn and play a card from Maxie's arsenal, and most of those, though we can't see it, I think can't see what those cards are here. I think those are some of the ones that I was referring to before that are generally spells. I think they're all spells, or at least special cards. And some of them, gain that additional damage over time. So I think what we might do is a Journeying Mauler here, boost it with a cleanse, so it's hopefully out of removal range, and if it stays alive, then it can become a boosting recipient for things like Recruit, or hopefully Trident Infantry, or rather, Temerian Drummer, if we draw into that.
If I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning.
And if we do not find ourselves drawing into a Temerian Drummer very, very soon, we will probably look to use Portal on our next turn and see if we can find something else that can boost our cards over time. Either another Temerian Drummer, or better yet, Anna Stranger. Things along those lines. Because otherwise, we just don't have the setup that we need right now. Francesca can make it so that they play more copies of special cards. So it's basically all a special card-centric deck. That is I think, is that the card I was thinking of? Remove. Also, wait, hold on. This art now means a whole lot more with the most recent Gwent expansion as well, which I also did not realize. Black Sun Pendant. This is something that shows up for the new Renfrey card. Remove 10% of your opponent's current energy. What? Then boost a random allied unit by the amount removed? We need a lot. Thank you very much. That's extremely rude. We did get a Temerian Drummer. That is extremely valuable. So let us use Ramon to create an additional Temerian Drummer. So that's one of the reasons why we really wanted this, because Ramon would have been a great way to get more value out of it. And so now that is possible. So let's do this. And we'll put Ramon here to make a Temerian Drummer and put it here. That way, if they do find a way to destroy a Journeying Mauler, we still at least have something that's receiving the boost. But of course, we would like for that to be either if not a Journeying Mauler, a Trident Infantry, or a Selkirk, which again, as I was saying before, I'm used to playing in the melee row because it's pro-locked to the melee row in multiplayer Gwent, but we can play in the range row if necessary here. Something to be said for trying to destroy Francesca before they trigger this ability, but we would need a whole bunch of damage. And this is 4, which we're dropping down to a 9, which, even if we high roll Masterful Thunder, is not enough. So I just don't think that's possible for us to remove her. So let's hope that you survive, and we can maybe try to remove whatever their next most threatening unit is. Okay, Sarah gives boosts when they use special cards, which means if they're gonna spam special cards, we definitely want to get rid of her. Another boosting target. Okay, I think we know, if we make it out of this encounter, I think we know exactly what we need to do. Too many boosting targets. We need more boosters. All right, so we have enough damage to destroy Sarah, and I think we have to. And that's maybe even a good thing to rush this a little bit, because that does mean that you're no longer a card that we need to boost. So we can, instead of having you next to this Temerian Drummer, put someone else next to you, like Selkirk, like Trident Infantry, like AGLAIS. I think, especially against this opponent, we're probably going to want to play AGLAIS near / at the very end of the match, because otherwise, if we leave her out there, she is vulnerable. If she gets damaged, then she is potentially completely useless, because she does not get any additional value from the boost until we use that order, unlike something like Trident Infantry, which deals the damage as soon as it receives the boost. No order necessary. So, for that reason, I think if we're trying to boost stuff early, well, maybe we go Selkirk, though, to try to, after we get rid of Sarah, also shut down whatever their next most important unit will be. So let's do this. This actually hasn't triggered yet. Because I guess, yeah, you have cooldown 2 on your leader ability, so you will have it on this turn, which means you will get 2 copies of whatever you play next. Selkirk, if we don't boost you right now, is likely to get destroyed, I feel. They took some of our energy, which I did not remember that Maxi could do. So I definitely don't like that. Okay, now this Johnny is basically the counterpart to Sarah.
Great, you're worse than children.
He deals 2 damage every time they play a special card, rather than boosting units every time they play a special card. Okay, I wasn't sure where the boosts were coming from. The boosts are coming from that card as well. Okay. So we'd like to get rid of Johnny. Selkirk, at this point, has 9 or more damage. So he is definitely overkill on Johnny. I think this is a time where we opt to go Thunder on Johnny. And then we, at that point, probably would like to slow down a bit on the energy, because although this is obviously an elite battle and we want to make sure that we complete it, we have seen that there is a whole lot of battles coming after this, with only 1 opportunity to restore energy before all those, actually, immediately after this encounter. And we're going to have something like 6 normal battles and then an elite battle, and only then are we going to get the chance to restore energy, and I think only once before the boss. So that's kind of concerning. But for now, we would like to get a Temerian Drummer down as quickly as possible. And at the moment, sure, we'll put it on you. You've, of course, already used your order ability, so it doesn't matter that you receive the boost, but we just want to be earning points from this, and then we'll put probably Trident Infantry there on our next turn. So let's go in Masterful Thunder, and low range is still enough to kill Johnny, so we are guaranteed to get rid of him. We'd, of course, still like to see a little bit of overkill damage so we can get some splash damage on this Warg, if possible. And we actually got a decent amount of that, so that's nice. And we're trying to be patient with Selkirk to try to get him a little bit stronger still. If we were to use him now, he'd hit... We'd want to go after Francesca, because she's the strongest unit. He'd hit for 9, you'd drop down to a 4, you'd hit him, drop him down to a 5, hit you, destroy you. So, it is a decent trade, but it can be better still if we wait longer. Again, it's a risk. It is a risk. If they damage Selkirk, then that will backfire. Mark and Omni Bleeding, they should put that on. I suppose that makes some sense. Okay, Zoltan gives us a big burst of boosting, which could be useful for AGLAIS if we were thinking of playing her. I was going to go very last turn, but maybe second to last turn or third to last turn. We could boost her up quickly with Stennis and Zoltan. So that's an option. But we'd like to go Trident Infantry now to get another card that actually benefits from receiving boosts going next to this Temerian Drummer, which the bleed is going to go through the armor. So that is going to make it eventually drop down to 1 point. I don't remember if they have additional damage that they can do to cards that are marked, because that is also what this is here. Whenever a unit with this status receives damage from any other source, repeat that instance of damage once. Oh! I assume that includes bleed as well. So that actually will be enough bleed to destroy you. That's not great. You won't die on this turn by that alone, though. They will have their leader ability back. But we might be able to justify recruit on you to boost you up a little bit. Maybe. Basically, I say this because the obvious solution is cleanse. But I'd rather not have to... but we want to use our energy early if we're going to use it, right? As we were saying before, we are not good at catching up to our opponents if we start to fall behind, and they are technically still in the lead here. That is in part because we've not yet used Selkirk. But still. Okay, Triss means more special cards. Fortunately, we got rid of Johnny and we got rid of Sarah. That's going to boost all their units. They have a decent number of those. Fortunately, they did the boosting before they spawned in more units, though. Otherwise, other way around, they would have generated even more points. So now this Francesca is a 14. Selkirk can still take her out, but it's, as we were saying, still not a perfect exchange. So might this be the turn where we use Pit Fighter as quite literally just a throwaway because it is an 8 power body with no other abilities? I think so. Because, yes, we'd like to play AGLAIS early, but we still have other cards that are benefiting from receiving these boosts, so to play AGLAIS means we're getting rid of the setup for someone else. And yeah, by having fewer cards in hand, when we do play Recruit, there's a higher probability that it happens to give the hand boost to AGLAIS, which would be a tiny little bonus, but a bonus no less. Okay, we should use Selkirk pretty darn soon, because I'm getting a little bit nervous about that. Suddenly, damage an enemy unit by the amount of boost it has. You know, 7, for example. And then boost self by that amount. So this is basically a hard counter against us. It needs to go. It simply must go. It would be overkill damage for Selkirk to go after it because it's just 4 power. So that's why we will still use a Masterful Thunder and we get a little bit of overkill damage here. And now I think is the turn where we go Selkirk on Francesca because, yes, Francesca has 1 more power, but that means that we're hitting for 12, you drop down to a 1, you hit Selkirk for 1, he gets dropped to an 11. It's not a huge deal, so I think we'll take it. We're dealing 13 damage and taking 1 damage for a net 12. So that's, I think, still an exchange we'll take. And again, the longer he stays on the board here without using his order ability, the more susceptible we are to potentially them just significantly weakening him and getting the chair pulled out from under us. And we still have not yet played a card on this turn, for what it's worth. So, at least not from our hand, that is. So we want to save these guys, ideally, until we have AGLAIS on the board, which means I think it is recruit time. Technically, we, in that case, should have gone recruit onto Selkirk, and then Selkirk would have had enough damage to remove without taking any damage himself, so it's a 1-point difference. Hopefully that doesn't come back to bite us. Instead, you can boost Trident Infantry for 1 more damage. You can boost Temerian Drummer to get this a little more out of removal range to hopefully have a more sustained set of boosts on Trident Infantry. I think I might actually prefer this. The hand boost went on Stennis, unfortunately. So next turn will likely be AGLAIS, and we'll put AGLAIS over here. Destroy an enemy unit. That's why we made a point of using... Oh boy! Of using Selkirk on that turn. That is ridiculously strong, especially against our deck. And then damage a whole bunch of enemy units by 3. Wow. Yeah. Not bad. Not bad. So now we go AGLAIS. Yeah, technically. They were so kind. Look at this. They destroyed not only our boosting recipient that no longer needed to be boosted, they got rid of our other booster, but in doing so, they put a boosting recipient next to a booster. So kind of them. So yeah, it was going to be that we were going to put AGLAIS where Selkirk was, so she was going to receive the boost from Temerian Drummer. Now it does mean with 1 fewer Temerian Drummer that AGLAIS is going to steal the boost from Trident Infantry. So technically speaking, we don't need to do that. because we get 1 extra point per boost on Trident Infantry, we get 1 extra point per boost on AGLAIS. AGLAIS goes taller than Trident Infantry does, so this is actually safer to play. Safer to keep it like this and keep AGLAIS by herself, and we will just rely on... We should put her here, next to Trident Infantry, so that we can still put Zoltan between them and boost them both up, but I think that is the way to go. The question is, after they just remove our most highly boosted card, remember they still can play one more card than us here, do we need to once again use an expensive spell here, like say Portal, and maybe find a way to get some boosts out of this? Possibly. Possibly. It's getting really expensive, this encounter here. Give an allied unit armor or vitality. Vitality does mean more boost, which does mean we can either have a bigger AGLAIS or more damage from Trident Infantry. Both of them give us additional value. Bloody Baron can reset a card. If it's highly damaged, we can get it back up to its base value, which is worth 2 points on Ramon, or if it's highly boosted on our opponent's side, we can set it back down to what it started on. But that's not really a huge factor. So, don't think Bloody... I mean, we can give it bleeding if he's inspired, and put him in the range row, he will be. So, technically, that's what, 7... plus 3 is 10, and then enough bleeding to remove you. 12 points of value. 12 points of value versus 5, and each point of vitality here is functionally worth twice the value it says there, so this is 11. 12, 11. Technically, this is better, even if it doesn't feel like it. This definitely is not good. It gains value over time, and it is late in the round, late in the match. So it's just not enough time for this to pay off. So I guess it is Bloody Baron. And I suppose there's a chance that they'll have something that gets even further boosted, in which case Bloody Baron could be worth even more than what he is currently worth. But we will see, except now he's no longer boosted, so we'll no longer have the bleed. That's one of the reasons why I was hesitant to commit to him, because it means, yeah, we're still getting rid of the 3-point boost on you. That means you played for, what, 6, 7 when we played you, plus 3 for 10 rather than 12, whereas it would have been 11 if we had gone the other route. So yeah, the other card, technically, in hindsight, would have been worth 1 more point. But we'll use this while we still... I mean, we technically could wait and see if there's going to be a better option still, but as always, leaving cards unboosted, or leaving cards with orders unused, is just begging for your opponent to remove them before you get the chance to use them at all. So I think we will still do this. I mean, we could Zoltan or Stennis to inspire you, but that's a wasted opportunity when we could instead be doing that to one of these guys. So yeah, this encounter is much more difficult than I remember it being. It might just be that it feels as though many of the cards that our opponents are using are especially effective with the deck that we are running here. So maybe, I mean, like, that's a... Gonna need to boost again. We could go Cleanse on you. That would get you inspired, which means it's worth slightly more to give you the bleed, but it's not a huge difference maker. It would still be worth more points to boost AGLAIS with it, especially because AGLAIS did get damaged by 2, so that is weakening the effect of her boost, her order. So it's always Portal as well. If we feel like we need even more than that, then there's a chance we might be able to pull that off. I think we might just go Cleanse on AGLAIS. And now it's Zoltan here. Little bit of extra damage will reset you. No bleed, as we were saying, because you're no longer inspired. So it does mean we've taken the lead here. And we still have yet to use this. Okay, so there's a perfect example of this would have been worth more if we'd waited to use Bloody Baron. There's more damage. Oh, that's a whole lot of damage. Hold on. I think that was the card I was alluding to at the beginning. Damage a random enemy unit by 2. Repeat this for each special card you played this game. So if they play this near the end, as they just did, that is a ton of value, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 special cards. So this was worth 18 points of damage. It's pretty ridiculous. There are not many cards that can do that. But now we go Stennis melee row on AGLAIS.
Stand for Royal Majesty.
She is now boosted by 8. So if we use her order ability now, she'd be worth an additional 8. It is just barely enough for us to catch them, and they still have a card to play. We'll get 1 extra boost from this one extra boost from Temerian Drummer, 1 extra point of damage from Trident Infantry. So this is 2 points. This is 8 points for a total of 10. Gets us up to 54, which means they need 6 points to catch us. They don't have Fleeter ability. It's on cooldown. I don't know what their last card is going to be, but we've seen them play some pretty big point slams. So as much energy as we've spent, I mean, obviously if we lose this encounter, we lose the run. So we can do Cleanse, which is worth 6 if we put it on AGLAIS. We can do a portal. A portal and just see what we happen to get. Masterful Thunder. If we were to do it on a relatively low power card here, we're guaranteed to at least get some overkill damage. Possibly just 1 point of overkill damage, but it'd hit both of you guys. That'd be, what, 3, 4, 5? Which is worst case scenario, slightly worse than Cleanse. Best case scenario, it's 8 damage, which means there's 5 overkill. So 3 here, 5 here is 8, 4 here is 12. That would be better than Cleanse. And potentially better than Portal as well. Portal is the biggest unknown, probably potentially the highest upside, but we just have no idea what our options are going to be. So this is also cheaper from an energy standpoint, of course, but I'm concerned about where things stand. Morkvarg, if they had a highly boosted card, which they reset some of their more highly boosted cards, it's worth 3 points of damage, or actually 4 points of damage on you, so you're a 9. You're an 8, unless there's a lightly armored card. No, you're an 8. Dandelion, draw a card, then play that card. 4 points plus whatever we happen to draw ourselves into is 5 points, 4 points, 8 points. So 8 plus 4 here would be the most. This is the safe option. This is just the worst option. Worst case scenario, 4 plus 4 is 8, which is same as worst case. So yeah, you're functionally worst case scenario as bad as the worst option here. Best case scenario, better than this. This is the middle ground. Might opt for middle ground here. Might opt for middle ground.
We'll turn to see red.
Hold on. Don't remember how highly boosted this Viper is. I admittedly did not check. I don't remember what space power is because it is not a card in multiplayer Gwents. Okay, that was still the right target, so we're good. So now it means we're boosting place as is, and it means we have a 13, what will become 15 point lead at the end of this turn. Is that enough? Ooh, okay. Okay, good thing we did make those investments, because otherwise we would not have won that. Very close encounter. And we had to blow through so much energy to complete that. We can either select a treasure. Are you serious? Excuse me. That's just rude. I just feel completely disrespected right now by you offering me the Pit Fighter after we got the Pit Fighter from our first encounter and our first treasure, and still have not gotten the chance to build it up. This is just a slap in the face. So now we'll upgrade AGLAIS instead. So the key difference here is that we can keep her in hand. So even though she is a boosting target, she is boosting target now that we can boost from hand, and so that means no longer need to be as worried about boosting targets competing to be placed next to Temerian Drummer, for example. So we'll definitely go this route. And now the problem is we have this place of power, or we have this place of power if we go the southern route. Basically, energy and then battles, or battles and then energy. I think I'll take the energy and then battles, given the current state of our energy. And we are definitely going to take the energy here. But then this is going to be our last place of power for a very, very long time. Which I don't think bodes particularly well. But we shall see what comes of our next few battles here. Furious Ice Giants does frost damage. Oh, but we finished an elite encounter, so the Pit Fighter is now a 14 points card, which is suddenly big enough that we probably could justify, we definitely could justify keeping this if we just use it as our final play. Because as we just saw from the previous match against the elite enemy, we were looking at, for the most part, cards being at best around 8 or 9 points for our very last play. So having something that is a 14 is a nice way to be able to go. Ramon plus Temerian Drummer is great. Get an additional Temerian Drummer. We have a place in hand, we can keep her there. Don't necessarily need to play her. So let's get rid of One-Eyed Betsy here, and we'll look for, ideally, actually, dare I say, another boosting target is actually what we're looking for. But it's not critically urgent, because we can still, when we play Ramon, use that to create a Temerian Drummer, and use that Temerian Drummer to boost Ramon, so it's not like we don't have anyone to get boosted, it's just not anyone that gets additional value from it. This again, AGLAIS might as well keep her in hand. So I think we'll settle for this. And we'll see what we draw into as well. And there is a boosting recipient, so that's perfect. So now let's go Ramon. So hopefully what we'll find now... Oh, I was like, wait, why did AGLAIS get the... No, she gets the hand boost. That's not a coincidence. That's what she got from getting upgraded from that previous encounter. So hopefully, having done that, that will be just enough of a difference to make it so that we no longer feel like we are constantly pressed. We have people competing for the onboard boosting. So now it's going to be Selkirk that we're going to want to put next to this Temerian Drummer. And the Frost damages the highest of our units in a row by 2, which means the recipients of our boosts are going to get hit by it, which is unfortunate because Selkirk in particular, and AGLAIS in particular, do very much want to maximize the boosts. So, all the more reason to keep AGLAIS in hand. Trying to remember what other units they have, though. That's unfortunate. That is very, very unfortunate. 2 power Selkirk is just about useless. So, now I think we will pretty much need to play this Temerian Drummer over here.
Army's a waste of time for one like me.
And we really can't use you until you get more highly boosted. And I wanted to try to keep cards in the same row, because once they start doing the Frost, if they try to do that on both rows, and they just did, or they just put it on one row at least, then that means that they're getting twice as much damage out of it. We do have another boosting target, so that is just in time to put you here and replace Ramon as the boosting recipient, because you don't really care about the boost.
Could have settled this amicably, you know.
So on our next turn, either Selkirk or Temerian Drummer are going to get hit by the Frost. It's because they're tied for the highest unit. If Selkirk gets hit, obviously he drops down to a 1, which means he is useless, like completely useless, until he gets significantly more boosted. So it might even be worth on our next turn. Recruits on Selkirk, but on the other hand, if we boost him too much, he's going to once again be the recipients of the Frost. So, I mean, we'll see what comes of it, but that is really nasty against Selkirk. Well, now after the boost, he is guaranteed to be the highest unit in this row. So he's going to drop to a 2 right now. We have another Temerian Drummer, which we would like to get down as quickly as possible. And if we were to play it in this row, it would be the card that gets hit by the Frost, which is actually kind of nice. So we, again, don't really want that to be Selkirk, and if we were to not mess with our melee row at all right now, then we would have both these guys tied for 3 once you receive the boost from the Drummer, and again, we're stuck in that situation where maybe you're getting dropped down to a 1. If not, then it's going to happen on the subsequent turn.
Left, right, left,
So
right.
we don't like destroying these guys because it means they get a bigger Ice Giant, although if we could get Selkirk big enough to take on this Ice Giant and duel it to death, or use Eternity Mauler to weaken it and then duel it to death, then that would be great if they're allocating all of their boosts to this one unit. Weaken it with One-Eyed Betsy as well. So that's going to be either of you two that might... take the hit, and we like it being you because you had 1 armor. So you're an engine, and a powerful engine at that. Don't quite have enough damage from you to destroy the Fuka yet. Selkirk, technically speaking, 3 damage. You hit us for 1, we hit you for 2, you get destroyed. It's kind of ugly that it would come to that, but I mean, we could go recruit, and in doing so, get you up to a 6, and then that's obviously definitely enough to remove you. I was kind of hoping we'd get the chance to use you to get rid of the giant, and maybe we would prefer to go recruit on Mauler, and that does give Mauler enough damage to destroy Fuka immediately, and we try to still save this up to maybe take on the ice giant. I think that might be the plan.
Scrubbing duty again? Oh god.
Hold on, so 1 more turn of Frost. It's gonna hit either this Temerian Drummer or Selkirk at the end of this turn. Let's put you in this row.
New orders?
Just so there's 1 other unit tied at 4 power to make it a little less likely for Selkirk to be the one that gets hit by the Frost, because, again, we want to have this guy get as powerful as possible to increase the value of his dual ability. So this is no longer a preferred boosting recipient. In fact, we're actually... I mean, AGLAIS is one of them. So, I was going to say we're out of them, but that's not really true. Okay, consume a bronze seed from your graveyard. You certainly have some. Okay, more Frost, and fortunately, Selkirk did not get hit. So that is nice, but at this point... I mean, is it actually worth throwing down an early AGLAIS? No, I think it makes more sense to probably go... If we were to put Pit Fighter here for what it's worth, then it would be the card that receives the damage from the Frost for the foreseeable future. That's not a terrible option. One-Eyed Betsy would be as well, and we can use her to damage Ice Giant a little bit more to get Selkirk more capable of doing something significant to you, but I think this works for at least this turn. Gives us solid value out of the armor. And either of you guys, really any of you guys, could be our last turn play. Okay, so now Selkirk will be the highest unit at the end of this turn, so we will get damaged by the Frost unless we play something like Pit Fighter or AGLAIS, or use Zoltan on a suboptimal target to be the recipient of the boost. So let's do Pit Fighter here. So he is going to absorb the damage from the Frost.
Longer you live.
Okay, more old spear tips. So you took the damage, that's cool. Now I think we go... AGLAIS is going to be the card that receives the damage from Frost if we play her in this row now, but I'd like to put her next to Selkirk so we can finish with Zoltan boosting both of them, which will counteract the damage from the Frost. And then Selkirk's big enough to at least take out this old spear tip. Possibly more, depending on if we're willing to invest any further. We have a pretty big lead here, for what it's worth. We'll damage one of their units here. Okay. Ooh, now you're suddenly huge. But, so Selkirk, we'll do this. Selkirk at 11 is basically capable of removing these guys. He'll take 1 point of damage in the process, but we deal 12 damage and receive 1. I think that is exactly the exchange that we saw previously. So take your pick as to who we'd like that to be against. Maybe Old Spear Tip. And there's the duel. Now we use AGLAIS, and that means we have a pretty big lead here. Basically 60 points. In fact, it will be more than that once these Temerian Drummers kick in. So feeling pretty good about that. I think we should be safe here. Yeah, we do have more units than you, but still not enough of a factor. Alright, so no energy spent. That is pretty important here because, as we were saying before, there are not many opportunities to restore energy for a while. And let's see. Can add... Oh, Regis's. Very nice when our opponents have a lot of boosts. Absorbing all their boosts for himself. Alternatively, these are not really, I mean, like, maybe justify getting rid of One-Eyed Betsy. Maybe. That's questionable. I mean, she's not our worst card. She's not very synergistic with the other things we're trying to do, so in that way, it's tempting to get rid of her. I think we're probably adding Regis here. You're a boost, but not a great booster. You're a damage, but not a great damager. Regis, the high-end potential of this is just substantially higher than the other cards that we've seen. Okay. So we really need to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 battles before we can restore energy at this place of power, one of which is an elite battle. So we really need to have probably 1, if not 2 or 3 more normal encounters in which we don't need to spend energy. If I'm being honest, Rune Mage, have we seen him? I think we have. Okay, Pit Fighter is getting stronger, for what it's worth, so we are gaining power from that with each battle, and so a lot of battles coming up soon. So he was a 14-point finisher, now he's a 17-point finisher, so that is nice. And we have 2 boosting targets, 1 boost, yes, Recruit is a booster, but it's not a great one. Remind me what he does, can play a gold unit. Ooh. Cooldown 3. But slow, that is potentially quite powerful. Okay, I do like that. I think we probably settle for this. No AGLAIS, of course. But technically speaking, Trident Infantry and Eternine Mauler are worth the same amount of points when they are the boosting recipients, just they need to be on the board, whereas AGLAIS can still do her thing in hand. And there's Selkirk Green. Now he's a 3rd boosting recipient, and we only have 2 sources of boosts. So in that case, I think what we'll do is we'll maybe lead... I mean, whatever we play first is quite susceptible to getting destroyed by either whatever they play from hand or whatever gold card they happen to get here. So I think for that reason what we'll do is we'll play one of our boosting targets. If it happens to get destroyed,
Could have settled this amicably, you know.
we have other ones that can replace it. But if it survives, then we can put a Temerian Drummer next to it and it will start to receive boosts. Normally that would mean we'd like to use this time to cleanse it and give it a little more of a boost to make it out of removal range, but given what I was just saying, where we want to be a little stingy with our energy right about now, we'll pass on it for the moment. Okay, that's a boosting card for them, not a damaging card, so I'd like to see that. If I remember correctly, it might be that every single card from their hand is one of those rune stones, which is also totally random what that does. Also, why did that deal damage? Why? Then damage enemy, random enemy unit by 2. Okay, so that is not what it does in multiplayer, Gwent. That is the source of my confusion. But now, let us get you. We got a recruit is what we drew into, which, yes, is a way of getting extra boosts and a bit of a burst of boost, which could be kind of useful on the Eternine Mauler right about now. But also, yeah, you gain power when you have, at the end of their turn when they have armor, and they gave extra armor to it with this Enchantress. That actually was a logical choice there. Unconventional choice, but surprisingly kind of smart. Well, thanks for stopping by, Endor. Catch you later. Have a good night. This is quite vulnerable still, especially after having taken the damage on the previous turn. If it does get destroyed, boost random allied unit by 2, okay. If it does get destroyed, no, it's more boosts. Love to see the Regis that we we just added to the deck, but we draw into AGLAIS. That's, of course, a welcome sight. But we'd like to probably go Temerian Drummer, because that gains value over time. We'll just do a Temerian Drummer chain for the moment. Then we'll put either Trident Infantry or Selkirk, probably Selkirk next. And then once we use either this Eternine Mauler order or this Selkirk order, then we'll put Trident Infantry where those guys were, so that Trident Infantry is receiving the boost instead. So they have a lot of engines, which which is concerning. This is going to deal 2 damage to someone. We would probably like for it to be a Temerian Drummer. It is. That looks familiar. Well, there is the very card that I was requesting, because you are currently boosted by 5, and may get boosted further still. So I think what we'll do is we will wait to play you until our second to last turn. So we actually have finishers with this deck, which is kind of unusual, because we have engines that we played early, and still have more engines left to use. Then normally AGLAIS would be an engine that you need to play on the board, but after the upgrade, she can stay in hand. You can go second to last turn, you could go very last turn, as could you if necessary. But, okay. I like the looks of that. So now let's go Selkirk here. I think we were saying was going to be the next priority. So we would like to get this damage high enough to remove something, but again, I'm trying to be stingy with the energy, but we need to be careful, because at least initially, this deck was not all that capable of having big bursts of points at the end of a match. That's no longer as much the case with AGLAIS still gaining power in hand, and 17-point Pit Fighter that we can slam whenever we'd like, and Regis Higher Vampire able to leech all the boosts off of, at the moment, what would be you, but could potentially become something else if they continue to pour on boosts elsewhere. That will get boosted. And trigger the Thrive. Give random unit vitality. Yeah, I mean, it's still you at the moment that we'd like to go after. This is going to damage someone. Okay, Betsy can deal 4 damage, which, if we can get rid of an engine, which we potentially could, I'm not sure if they're actually going to make a point of boosting Trident Infantry, but it may become the recipient of some of that random boostage, then there's something to be said to taking you out. We do this, 6 points of damage. It's not enough to do anything interesting yet. Well, hit you for 6, you drop down to 2. Hit us for 2, we drop to 4. We can remove you. It was very smart for them to play that in between what was initially 2 armored units, so they were going to almost completely negate the self-damage and just benefit from the boosts. I mean, that's still 6 boosts compared to 17, going to be more than that on you. So this is still looking like it's going to be the Regis target, which means shutting you down is not a terrible idea, but it seems like they don't have that much in the way of damage, so we might be able to get a little bit greedy with Selkirk. So I think we will opt to go One-Eyed Betsy here. And just get rid of this Trident Infantry, just in case. Mauler still needs a fair bit of time to power up. We are looking at a deficit right now, of course, but we are building power. Okay, now that got a boost self by 6 for each unit damage. Let's see, so this is plus 12. This is plus 9. That might become the most highly boosted card. I mean, that's another reason for us potentially to look for this to be the Regis solution. That's another engine. Let's see. 7, 3. And if we had 1 more point of damage on you, we could remove Fuka. It might get boosted on their next turn, so that's not necessarily something we can rely on waiting a turn to do. Selkirk would be enough, of course. But might Selkirk be better used on one of the bigger cards? At the moment, not yet. I'd like to at least be able to get rid of some of their armor. And we could recruit on Selkirk, makes him a 10. Then, yeah, that armor really complicates matters for you. 10, hit you for 10, get hit for 10. It's not that helpful at that point. We really want you to get bigger and want you to get bigger. And this still remains the best target for Regis, so still not loving that. We go recruit on you. Gets you up to 6 damage. We could remove Fuka. It's not a terrible option. This is potentially going to get boosted by 2 per turn. Not sure how reliably they're going to be able to trigger that Thrive, but it is theoretically a possibility, and we'd like to use one of these order abilities soon, so we can get Trident Infantry next to one of the Temerian Drummers. So I think we will do that. We will get rid of you, and that means next turn we can play Trident Infantry here. Okay. Okay, that gives them more vitality. If anything, we want to go on you. Okay, granted, it didn't. Okay, stay. 4-point boost, not a huge deal, but it does trigger a couple of thrives. So now, at this point, it is Trident of Infantry here.
Awaiting your orders.
Then it's either Regis or AGLAIS. These three are pretty interchangeable. You can't be last, though, because we need to have time for that order ability. Still not yet enough for this to be a great exchange. And with no recruits to power you up, it's going to be hard to make that happen. Istrid, he is going to gain some power. Assume they use that immediately, but
I'll break you.
do they? I'm going to give one of our cards bleeding, that's fine. And that apprentice is also going to get boosted up.
Move those hooves, or we'll both be hammed.
To the point where this would even be the preferred target of this Selkirk. We are looking at a pretty big deficit here. The reason why I'm not so concerned about it is because we still have this potentially 9 points of damage or more from Selkirk. Still no obvious way to maximize the value from that. Regis is the big one because we can turn a 12-point boost on their side. We can remove all that and gain it on our side for what, a net 24 plus 7 on the body, so 31-point play right here at the moment as things currently stand. AGLAIS right now is going to be a 23-point play, but we'll get better still if we wait to play her. So this is the biggest question mark. It's how best to use this. And we can remove his strength. He's not really doing anything else anymore, but he's a 7-point body. You're going to be worth more than that over time. So Witch Apprentice, maybe it is worth just shutting down Witch Apprentice. Because it feels like, you know, if you stay at 20, it's going to take us a few more turns. Eventually we can get up to 11. Then we hit you for 11, you drop to 9. Hit us for 9, we drop to 2. Hit you for 2. You're a 7. Then you destroy us. It's 13 points of damage. And lose a 11 in the process, which is just not great. I think this is best. This is going to get boosted by 2 every turn. So it's that, and then I think it probably is Pit Fighter.
Talk less, fight more.
Then Regis next turn, AGLAIS last. Technically speaking, could have put AGLAIS next to one of you and it would have worked, but yeah, we want. Oh wait, how did you get additional boosts? I mean, that's great. I actually love that. Oh, I forgot it's cool down as well. What's up, Arumi? How are you? Okay, so that actually works wonderfully for us because it just means that now this is an even bigger Regis. So actually kind of love that. Regis needs to remain safe for 1 turn before he can use his order ability. He's at 7 power, so it'd be pretty darn difficult for them to remove him, especially because they don't seem to have much in the way of damage. Famous last words, of course, but we could put him next to this Temerian Drummer just to give him 1 more point, because Selkirk is no longer needing those boosts, so I suppose why not? Okay. This runestone gives them a little tiny bit of damage. Okay, so now what we do is we're going to absorb a whole bunch of boosts from this War Elephant, removing them from you and gaining them for Regis, which is going to be a huge point swing. And then, of course, AGLAIS is going to be a big point slam as well. So that should single-handedly be enough for us to catch up here, I would think. We're about to find out, Rumi. We're about to find out. We're playing with fire a little bit, but that is in part because this should be a huge Uno reverse card right here. And this should also be quite useful as well.
Drink this, you'll feel better.
So I think we're good here. They have their leader ability. Is that where Black Rayla's coming from? It is. But she's not really all that useful on their very last turn, and this runestone, one would think, is not going to make enough of a difference. So we'll hold on for the win. No problem. That is why we added Regis to our deck. Okay, and I don't think we spent any energy there, did we? I don't think so. Alright, let's see what we can add. A stronger Selkirk, and actually base-powered Selkirk is fantastic because it means that the low end of his duel is stronger. As we saw in that previous encounter just then, a base-power Selkirk, not that useful, but he scales quite rapidly with additional boosts, so that would be nice, but on the other hand, he is another boosting recipient, and we already have several boosting recipients, and if anything, would probably like to have more boosters. Istrid can give us more consistency. Draw cards, starts with just one, but the longer we wait, the more it becomes. And then if we draw into a unit, we boost that by 1. If it's not a unit, we boost Istrid instead. So it technically gives us a tiny bit of boosting as well, and the consistency of fine-tuning your hand a little bit further. So it's not terrible. So Synthesis, 9 base power, which is pretty solid. Although, compared to our Pit Fighter that we have, it's substantially worse than that. But it does have immunity, so our opponent can't target it, which is nice. We can use that order to lose the immunity for 1 turn if we want to, give it a boost or something. Remove... Okay, so this is really tempting. As we were saying, we have a lot of boosting targets, not quite enough boosters to match, it seems. So getting rid of something like Eternian Mauler would be perhaps kind of nice. We have made it work by playing the Eternian Maulers and Selkirk a little bit on the earlier side and using the order abilities, because once we've done that, then they no longer benefit from the additional boost, so we can clear out some room for the other targets. So maybe we've figured out how to make it work as is, and we would like to just have more consistency. Well, I mean, adding a card for consistency or removing a bad card is another way to get consistency. So, it's... Perhaps this is kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone, whereas this is simultaneously helping and exacerbating a problem all at once. I think we remove you. Okay, and perhaps most importantly, I don't think we had to spend any energy, which means we now have 1, 2, 3, 4 battles, one of which is an elite battle, before we can restore energy here. We have 1 event, which is an unknown. There are certainly times when events have forced us, or at least tempted us, to lose some energy. We will get this treasure chest soon as well, so that is perhaps another way we can make ourselves a little bit stronger in the meantime. And at this point, Pit Fighter's up to 20 power, which is pretty sweet. So he was certainly a bit of a handicap at the beginning, a bit of a hindrance. But at this stage, he is definitely a strong asset, and will only get stronger still the further we go.
The dead.
I am pretty sure we've never seen this enemy. What is your deal? Whenever an ally unit is destroyed, summon it to a random allied row. Whoa. Okay, so that suggests damage against you is bad. Or at least destroying your cards is bad, because then they're all going to come back. So this feels like this is a hard counter against damage decks, which we are not necessarily. I mean, Selkirk is a card that once he's boosted can become a damaging card. We could deliberately try to use him to not destroy an enemy with a duel, but then again, I mean, when he uses the duel, either he's dying or one of our opponent's cards is dying. So I think Selkirk does not make much sense here. And Eternian Mauler is very similar. Obviously, we removed one of these, but we still have the other one from our starting deck. It's a little bit easier. It's much easier, actually, with this guy to be more precise with how much damage we're trying to get, where we could deliberately significantly weaken one of our opponent's cards without actually destroying it. So that is still potentially possible for us to do. My other thought is, it's one thing for us not to destroy their cards, but I imagine they may try to destroy some of their own cards, like Consume, which means they absorb the power from a unit and destroy the unit that they are consuming. But if they can immediately bring that card back, it's basically like a leader ability that is a built-in Detloff, like we've had with our, what was that, Hive Minds deck? So obviously that was really strong. So there, I can see the potential. This could potentially, if they can destroy their own cards and get value from it, and then still bring those cards back, that could be really powerful. I think we still dump Recruit. Okay, Zoltan's a better booster, and we have more boosters here. So let's go Ramon, and we'll use Ramon to create another Chimerian Drummer, probably.
History shall remember the art.
And that will boost up Ramon immediately, so that's nice. So I am really curious to see what this enemy does. I love it. This is possibly my favorite card for multiplayer Gwent. Whenever a unit is destroyed, boost self by 2. So, okay, we don't really want to see Selkirk. As we were just saying, we deliberately got rid of him because we didn't want him. I mean, we could deliberately just not use his order ability and kind of use him as a 5 base power unit, which kind of stinks, but, yeah. So you are going to get boosted. More cards get destroyed, and if there was a card that we would want, well, no, if we destroy her, she's just going to come back immediately, right? Whenever an allied unit is destroyed, summon to a random allied row. Yeah, I mean, in multiplayer Gwent, she's row locked to the melee row, but that's not the case in Rogue Mage, so you can maybe make the case that even if you do destroy her, maybe she would have come back in the range row, where she'd no longer be able to get boosted, so you can shut her down that way, but she's not row locked here in Rogue Mage, so not a factor. So she's going to stick around. We can weaken her, but she's going to get stronger over time. I would argue probably substantially so if they are going to deliberately destroy their own cards. But there's not really anything we can do about that. So just going to have to live with it. And I think because damage is not as high a priority as it would otherwise be, let's just prioritize pure boosting here. Get more boosting rather than the Mauler. Damage enemy, boost an ally. Okay. Not destroying any of their cards, their own cards, yet. But okay, more boosting is fine. So now we'll go Eternian Mauler, and so we're just gonna be really careful with how we use this guy. We don't want to destroy a card. I mean, I suppose if what we could do, we could put Selkirk here, get him boosted by the Sumerian Drummer, and if this She-Troll continues to get boosted substantially, and we still have enough power on Selkirk to destroy it, then although she will come back, she's going to come back, I would assume, with her base power. Then again, that would be the case in multiplayer Gwent. We have been burned so many times from Rogue Mage not working in exactly the same way as multiplayer Gwent. Whenever an ally unit is destroyed, summon to a random allied row. She should get reset to her base power when she goes to their graveyard, so she dropped down to a 4. So if, for example, they destroy a bunch of their own cards, they get up to 20 points on She-Troll, say, and we manage to get enough damage on Selkirk to destroy that She-Troll, then she goes to the graveyard and has 4 power while she's there. Leader ability brings her back out, should be at 4 power, which means, yes, she is coming back, but we have at least reduced her power from 20 down to 4. I mean, even then, why destroy her when you can hopefully drop her down to a very low number that is not 0 with Eternian Mauler. So that's probably some way to go about doing it. So you are still a very awkward card. Yeah, that's consumption. That's exactly what we figured we might see. So I think Regis Ire Vampire is once again going to be amazing for us here. Yeah, I am. As soon as we drew into it, I realized this is the perfect counter for what they're doing. Love the fact that we picked him up. He has already, on 2 prior occasions, been huge for us. 2 prior occasions? At least 1 prior occasion been huge for us. So, I mean, if they consume a bunch of their cards and destroy some of their cards, you're going to get boosted, you're going to get boosted. So, if we can absorb all those boosts on Ire Vampire, not only do we take those boosts, it's really one of the few ways we can weaken them without having those cards come back out. So that's amazing. I do love that, and that is reason to maybe be even more patient with this Mauler. So, in which case, what do we even want to do? Like, usually you would play Selkirk here and get him boosted up, but we don't really want to do that, because Selkirk, his dual ability is counterproductive. We could Stennis. Might even do range Stennis and just split the boost to try to keep these Chimerian Drummers alive. Because again,
This is priceless.
maximizing the damage on this Eternian Mauler is not necessarily what we're trying to do here. We want some, but not enough to remove something. Fortunately, most of our cards are boosted here. Otherwise, that would be worth a whole lot. Okay. That combo could have been absurd. Wow. So I didn't really think of how tempo-wise, how crazy that could have been, and it very nearly was. So when they play him, he sets the power of a non-boosted enemy unit to 1, which is why I said fortunately most of our cards are boosted, because I meant they can't target these guys. All we had was a 4-power Stennis, which meant they're functionally dealing 3 damage to him. Then they immediately consumed him and brought him back out, and they have 2 charges to do that with for Barbigazi. So you had the initial Vincent, then 2 more Vincents that came out from these. So they, on multiple occasions, tried to do that to Stennis, but he'd already been weakened, so it didn't do anything else. So we really dodged a bullet there, but that could have been pretty nasty. So I imagine what we're going to see is a lot more consuming units like this, and then Sheet Roll is going to remain the, over time, the most highly boosted card. Right now they're close, but I think Sheet Roll will continue to gain power because she doesn't have a limited number of charges. So for that reason, I think you will be the recipients of the Regis Order. And that means One-Eyed Betsy we could use to hit his Barbiazzi. Because otherwise, we don't have great options here. Unless, again, we don't really want to go with Self-Turf all that early. So it was a cool combo for what it's worth. In part just because they did it so quickly. Skjall is huge. Just from a base power standpoint, and is difficult to damage without destroying him. If he drops a 5 or lower, then he gets destroyed automatically. So, but he's a great target for them to consume, is my primary reason for my reaction. It's like, we could destroy him here, but then he's going to come back, so we don't want to do that. We could hit Barbiazzi for 5, drop it down to a 1. That is the perfect amount of damage, but I'm thinking we'll still have better targets for that if we're even more patient, and it doesn't seem like they have much in the way of damage. Shut us down. If we had Pit Fighter, that would have been the perfect counter, or the perfect way for them to get value from Vincent. Fortunately, we did not at the time. So, I mean, I think what we'll do is probably Sultan right here, and yeah, it's going to make Eternine Mauler stronger. Means we do need to be careful with them, but
Damn the horse sons!
I still get the sense they have enough boosting here that even a 10 damage Eternine Mauler may be okay, because I'm assuming they're about to consume Skjall. Well, that stinks. How high was that? How high was that card? He had a 10-point order, which means he was, what, a 14? That stinks. That was very close to backfiring on them. And had I known that they had that card, I perhaps would have not played Sultan on that turn. In fact, that was the only reason they could use that and not have it backfire, because it destroys the highest power unit, which can be their own unit. It does not necessarily mean that it is ours. If they have the highest unit, they destroy one of their own cards. So it very nearly happened, but I suppose, at the very least, good thing they did it now and not after we break out Regis Higher Vampire. I mean, obviously would have liked to use that order ability at the very least. Because not only did we lose a highly boosted unit, we lost that order ability, which was going to give us some damage. But I think that means that now we'll go Selkirk and we will deliberately play him here where he's not going to get boosted. Because we don't want boosts on you, because we don't really want damage on you. Okay, and of course I said they didn't seem to have much in the way of damage, and now they're playing a bunch of cards that have damage. So that's what I get for making assumptions about an opponent that we've not yet played. We are now getting near the end of the match, and these are our 3 preferred finishers. What is the preferred order in which to play them? This needs to be either this turn or next turn. It can't be our last turn, because we won't have time for the order. So, what's between you two? What is now and what is last? I think this is probably now and this is probably last. I'm gonna boost you. Well, in case they consume Vincent and try to reuse him, which I'm not sure they'll be able to do, but just in case. just in case. Oh, okay. Well, whatever they went after there was going to be pretty effective. Because everything was either that or AGLAIS. Either one was going to be pretty huge. Yeah, they have some very good tall damage, as it turns out. But now it's going to be Regis. And hoping he can live. Because at this point, an 11-point steal, or they lose 11, we gain 11 for a net of 22. Plus the 6 on you is a 28-point play. So would very much like for that to happen. And maybe for that reason we put you next to a boosting card. Get you up to a 7 at the end of this turn, where it's a little less likely for them to be able to destroy you. Okay, more cards that can potentially destroy themselves. We don't really have much in the way of damage anymore anyway, so that's not a concern. Let us absorb your boosts. So that's great. And then it's AGLAIS. We'll put you here.
Lie still.
And she will double her
Not yet recovered.
13-point boost, getting her up to 29, which means even if they can destroy one of these big cards, we should still be fine. But they, as we saw on that turn when they replayed Vincent a bazillion times, they have the potential to do some nasty stuff quickly, so should be fine, but I don't know. You played Villain Treadmirth on your last turn. It doesn't have time to activate, but it would have been awesome against us. So that's actually a pretty dangerous enemy. Definitely some misplays from them, or Villain Treadmirth in particular. If they played that earlier, that would have been a real thorn in our side. But they did manage to destroy several of our most highly boosted cards. Let's see. Damage, better base power than usual, armor, damage. Not loving any of the options here, to be honest. I mean, we could once again choose to remove one of our boosting targets. How many cards do we have in our deck right now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. We play 10 cards per match. If we get rid of one, we'll have 12 cards in our deck, which means there will be only 2 that we never see. There's a chance that, you know, see cards at the beginning that we mulligan out of. We can still potentially still draw into those cards that we mulligan, potentially immediately thereafter, but we are close to being able to guarantee that we can play every single card that we have, which is ideal for consistency's sake. It means, you know, if we remove all the bad cards, we're guaranteed to see all of our good cards, and we don't have any risk of AGLAIS getting stuck at the bottom of our deck, or Regis getting stuck at the bottom of our deck. You know, sacrificing Trident Infantry to do that is not the way that I'd like to make that happen. I would prefer to sacrifice this to recruit, but obviously that's not a choice that we have right now. We could opt to re-roll either the remove option or the add option, which is a little bit tempting. Our deck is... I mean, what would we remove at this point? Recruit? Is there anything else that we would feel good about removing? Because if that's the single card that we feel comfortable removing, then that is not really a gamble that I think is worth taking. One-Eyed Betsy, maybe. It's 2 cards. And after that, I mean, Trident Infantry and Enduring Maul are probably next on the list. So they're... They're not at the bottom. Yes, they're actually kind of close to it. And Stennis is not that good. That's not an option, is it? No. Definitely not removing you. Prefer not to remove you. We could add one of you, but you're one of our weakest cards if we do. It would probably be the Ifrit, in which case it is a better Betsy in most situations. But, as we were just saying, Betsy is perhaps our second worst card, or at least second least synergistic card. Or because it's not very synergistic, it's our second worst card. So adding that reduces our consistency. I don't love that. It's either way, it is less than ideal. Boss is the swamp monster. Does have decent counter to boosting highly, so maybe trying to infantry does not make much sense. But it does deal damage when it receives boost, which does make sense. I guess we take the Ifrit. Blah. Not really what we wanted. Now we get a treasure chest.
A forbidden art, and for a good reason. Most rules of the chapter are just foolish, but some happen to be wise.
Okay. See what we get here. Oh, speaking of consistency, there it is. With Magnifying Spyglass, move 3 cards to the top of your deck. So if we are not about to draw into AGLAIS, for example, we can guarantee that we get her. We know we're going to start with Pit Fighter in our hand, and at this point, Pit Fighter is up to a pretty huge number, 23. So I do like that. Spells cost half energy. We do have expensive spells. Transform an allied unit into a random one. Not great with this deck, because in theory, you do that to your weaker cards, yes, and you're more likely to get something that is more powerful than what you exchanged it for. But at the same time, we're boosting so many things that either a card is getting boosted or it is doing the boosting, and we don't really want to disrupt that. So one of these two, I think it might be the Spyglass. Taken it in the past, and it has been very good to us. Not a terrible time to go dependent, but I think, especially when we're saying this is perhaps a time, well, if we're about to go into an elite battle, we're expecting, or somewhat soon, and expecting to use a lot of energy in the normal fights, and then the elite battle after that, and only having one opportunity to restore energy after all that, before we go into the boss fight. You could make a case that this may be the niche situation in which we would prefer this. How much energy do we have? Still 69, which is good. At this point, we've avoided spending energy for a while now. I guess that means we're still okay spyglassing. But we have 2 normal battles and an event. And then an elite battle before we can restore energy. Then it's event, boss. So, really, if we can get one more battle with little to no energy spent, then I think we're probably in pretty solid shape. But we shall see. It's generally, the difficulty substantially increases once you get further.
One way or another.
Okay, fortunately, this is the weaker version of this guy. Spawn and play a copy of a spying enemy unit. Not a base copy, so if we boost stuff, he will receive the boost with the card that he creates. Cooldown is 3 rather than 2. That is the difference between the hard version and the normal version, I believe. So it means that stuff like AGLAIS, well, good thing is AGLAIS we can wait to play until the very end. Similarly with the Pit Fighter. So we'd like to avoid having these be the recipients of the spying, and therefore they will not create copies of it. So One-Eyed Betsy, although normally not a super high priority, if this is the card that becomes the thing that they turn into a spy, we might live with that. On the other hand, it is also the card that I'd be most keen on magnifying glassing, although... Ooh. We could play with fire. We could play with fire. And deliberately play a card that gets boosted early, assume that it'll be the recipient of their spying status and they'll create copies of it, and then rely on Regis at the end of the match to absorb those boosts for ourselves, steal them from them, and gain them for us. Problem with that is that we'd actually probably prefer that they take a booster and then just steal whatever is the most, or steal the boost from whatever's the most highly boosted card, because if they create multiple copies of a highly boosted card, we can still only drain the power from one of those units with Regis. So we'll still dump you. And they do have some ways to do boosting. They have Pact, which is boost by 6 special card, which normally wouldn't be that big of a deal. But if we, for example, give them an Endurning Mauler, and they can then use a bunch of boosts on him, then he does become more of a threat than we would otherwise expect. So I think Temerian Drummer first turn might be the play. I think it probably is. Okay, in Trident of Infantry, we need to be really careful about him, because this is the kind of card where you pour all the boosts on him, they steal them, and if they steal one copy, that's fine. We can absorb the boosts with Regis, but if they steal multiple copies of him, and they're all highly boosted, then you can only counter one of them, not all of them. So what do we want to draw into? Is a hard question to answer against this guy. He is one of, if not the single most dangerous normal enemy. Fortunately, not the more difficult version of him, but still. I think Ramon. Play another Temerian Drummer, but that means we can't play Temerian Drummer on this turn, and this turn is crucially important that we play something that we are comfortable with them creating copies of. So maybe it's Drummer, then Ramon. Still play the Drummer from our hand, and we make sure we get Regis. That's absolutely a must. I think we do that. So then we can still play you. And this is not going to receive boosts itself, which is one of the reasons why, if they create additional copies of it, sure, it's going to give them 1 point per turn, but it's not like this Drummer is going to get up to 20 points, and they're going to steal a 20-point unit on several different occasions. So I want you to give spine to this. If you're going to give spine to something, I want it to be this. And there it is.
And if I insert a needle here, what then?
And then if you... Hopefully... Hopefully, most of your boosts end up going toward one unit, and it might be this Mage Torturer. We'll have to see. And then that gives us an obvious target for Regis to go after. But for the next several turns, they will be on cooldown. So we have a little bit of a window here to play something a little more safely. But as we were saying, anything that receives boosts is going to be an obvious target for them to go after. Wanna save Ramon so we can create another Temerian Drummer, but that does make things still a little bit awkward on this turn. Like for it to be a boosting recipient, but those are the cards that are most dangerous when they steal them. I think we'd rather they steal a highly boosted Trident of Infantry than a highly boosted Endurning Mauler, because if they steal a highly boosted Trident of Infantry, yes, they get a high base power card, but they do not necessarily get additional damage out of them, whereas if they do steal a highly boosted Endurning Mauler, yes, they are getting a more powerful order ability that is immediately set and ready to go. So let's do this. Of course, it doesn't have spying yet, and they're on cooldown anyway, but Fur Card is going to be a way to give additional spying statuses to us, so we'd like to get rid of you if we can. There's Pact. As I said, that's going to be a way to give themselves additional boosts, and it does mean they put the spying on Trident of Infantry, so we need to be a little bit careful about that now. So this turn would be Ramon into Temerian Drummer. We could get rid of Fur Card, and if we do, they might not have any additional ways to deal spying to us. Granted, he is now highly enough boosted that we do not have sufficient damage to remove him immediately. Even if we were to high roll with Masterful Thunder. So I think we might need to deal with that. At this point, they steal, you know, a 5 or 6 or 7 point Trident of Infantry. It's not the end of the world. We're deliberately trying to avoid giving them a super valuable card to steal. For example, like if we just handed them a 23 power Pit Fighter or however many boosts AGLAIS that they can then double the boost on, then that would be a big problem. Okay, they're gonna steal you, I would think. No! Ramon, I mean, that's fine. He was the least valuable to us. We draw into Regis, which we're gonna absolutely wait to play him until pretty late on. So now, I think we're probably looking at Temerian Drummer here and putting you there. We do not want to boost up the cards that have spying any more than we need to, and that could mean putting something in between this Temerian Drummer and this Trident of Infantry just to slow down their leader ability, which they are going to use on their next turn, but worst comes to worst, it's a 7-point Shrine of Infantry that they put next to this Temerian Drummer, which is solid, but not in and of itself enough to make us be concerned about this one. Also, did I say we had 69 energy? We're at 49? I don't remember if I just misread that before, or if that happened from some other source. That's much more of a concern in that case. Okay, well, they're gonna make it so that this Shrine of Infantry is not getting additional boosts. It's actually kind of nice, so this is not as good of a steal for them, long term at least. Status is a decent steal, but they are gonna make a copy of it, and they're gonna put it in the wrong spot, fortunately for us. Okay, so this, as of right now, remains the best card for us to target with Regis. Recruit is actually not a terrible thing, because it's not that valuable, and we can use it to boost up a card that does not yet have spying. They're going to continue to apply additional rounds of spying to cards that don't have spying, so you, when they play special cards, which they have a lot of in their decks, so that's why I was saying if we could remove Furcart, that'd be nice, but when we have a little bit of time, they are going to be on cooldown for a little while. Maybe that means we can go Eternian Mauler this turn, Recruit on Eternian Mauler next turn. It's still not going to be enough single-handedly to remove Furcart, but maybe if we combine that with one Masterful Thunder, that would be sufficient. Even then, I feel like probably don't want to be... Ideally, we're investing 0 energy in this encounter, so it's, you know, it's pretty stingy in that case. That might come back to bite us. If we don't do that on this turn, then it's Recruit boost you, because you don't have spying at the moment at least. Which I think we'll still do.
103.
Yeah, so now that this is receiving boosts, you're not going to be as big of a deal for them to steal. Or you're not going to get any bigger for them to steal. So, I mean, it's probably going to have to be a Dirty Mauler on this turn. So it means less boosts on him. So weaker order ability, but that's deliberate because that way they are not going to be able to just immediately get a whole bunch of value out of it. But I think I will still put it next to this drummer.
When I do the tenderizing, there's nothing left to fry.
So that we at least have the option of going Masterful Thunder plus Mauler to potentially remove you. But we now have 3 cards that don't have spying. So even if Furcart does trigger when they play a special card, they might get a Recruit, which is not a very big deal. Also, where'd you get the... Use another pact or something? Oh, it's the Emissary. So yeah, they're doing a fair number of boosts here, which means that this Regis should turn out to be fairly big. Not as big as some of the other ones that we've seen, perhaps, but we'll see. Okay, lock. Who are they going to lock? Okay, that means a smaller Eternian Mauler, and of course it is the card that gets this spying status. Of course it is. But with just 1 boost on it, it's a 2-power order ability, so it's not that valuable. Much like the Shrine of Infantry, it's a 7-point card that they can potentially steal. So it's not that much of a threat for them to do that. Love to get rid of this. Well, actually don't love to get rid of this Temerian Drummer, because that's the primary way they're boosting up this Mage Torturer, and we are eventually going to steal all those boosts. So these are really, all these boosts are ones that we are planning to take for ourselves, unless it's going to be Shrine of Infantry. You guys are, technically you have more boosts than you do right now, but close enough that that is subject to change. So we could Zoltan on you, get you 4 more points of damage, which would be enough to remove this Temerian Drummer. Problem with that is then this becomes a much more valuable card for them to steal, and they definitely would on their next turn. So I don't love that. I think we're looking at Zoltan boosting the 1 card that we can boost. In the 1 place where we can avoid boosting a spying unit. Which obviously the Recruit doesn't really benefit from receiving boosts any more than any other card would, but it's safer against this enemy in particular. So now, I think we do use this, because you're not really going to get any stronger from here on out. And at this point, we don't really want to hit you, or we don't really want to destroy you. But yeah, let's just hit status. Shouldn't really make much of a difference here. Okay, who are you getting that to? Okay, it is starting to look like... And they're gonna... Okay, now they're putting that in the right place, next to this Tamarian Drummer. It's not gonna be that big of a factor this late on in the match. They're gonna have one more leader ability, aren't they, at the very last turn? But from here on out, for the most part, we're relatively safe to play things without worrying too much about them getting shut down. So I think what we'll do... Actually, the later we play something, the less likely it is to get the spying status. So, what are we more concerned about them creating a copy of AGLAIS or Pitfighter? AGLAIS, right now with an 11-point boost, at another 11 is functionally a 25, which is slightly better than Pitfighter. So, I think we play Pitfighter now in that case. Obviously, this is a card we don't want them to create a copy of, because that's a pretty darn solid play.
Let's crack on with it.
But, there's a reason why we waited to play him. We're hoping they do not have any other ways to give spying, but they will with Furcart potentially. Give it to someone. Who's it going to be? Okay, recruit. Fine. Totally fine. Create a 9-power recruit if you'd like. Now it has to be Regis, because he otherwise would not have time for his order ability, so let's make sure that we do this. And we're actually okay with them stealing Regis, because if they do, they won't have time for his order. So we could put him next to this... Really, either of you. In fact, we'd prefer to put it here, because you don't have spying, so it's not a big deal for you to receive boost, whereas you do have spying. So we don't want you to get boosted any further, ideally. Multiplayer Regis is roll locked to the melee row. It is not in Rogue Mage, so that pained me a little bit to do that. This part of me felt like that was going to be a misplay. But... Okay, Hoakim is going to give one of their cards a big boost. Still don't think that's going to be... Oh, that's scary, though.
Do I enjoy
Probably on
torture?
Pitfighter, yeah. Because this is the card they're going to create a copy of on their last turn now. So we said that, okay, Pitfighter was better that they create a copy of that than AGLAIS, and so we made a calculated risk there. We are going to steal boosts from whoever's the most highly boosted card right now, and I believe it is Trident of Infantry. And they will not be able to steal a Regis Higher Vampire unless they can put spying on him immediately and then use leader ability. It's theoretically possible, in which case they won't have time to use his order, but he will still be very high power. Right around the same amount as Pitfighter, probably. Pitfighter, I think Regis will still be a little bit stronger. Think we still do this, though. Yeah, slightly stronger than Pitfighter. So now, they can only create a copy of one card, of course, and it has to have spying, so it's likely to be Pitfighter. If they can create an additional spying card, it might turn into Regis. AGLAIS will be bigger still, because she is 29, which means we do have double their points. But they can play for minimum 23 with their leader ability, plus 1, 2, so it's 25, and then whatever card they have from their hand. So that gets them up to, what, 89? So they need like a 30-ish points card from their hand, which I forget what this guy uses as a finisher. I feel like it's usually pretty weak. I feel like it is. I mean, he's already played several pacts. Played one pact. Gonna take a bit of a risk here and assume that we have enough of a margin that we're still good to go. It's Glusty. There are no 1-power cards, so it is completely worthless. They do steal a Pitfighter, but that should not be enough for them to catch us.
Let's take a gander.
So no problem. We're good. We're good. Alright, let's see. We can add Balibor for damage. Apiarian Phantom for boost if we don't use the order. And if we do, then it's damage. Nekker for more boosts, but kind of hard to trigger those. With Pitfighter and AGLAIS getting power in hand, it's more feasible now than it was before. But what we can remove, I'd said, These two are perhaps not amazing cards for us, and at this point we have, what, 13 in deck? 1, 2, Magnifying Spyglass might have changed that. 1, but we can't draw into this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 cards that we can actually draw into. That means we won't see 4, but we have the consistency now coming from the Spyglass, so I think removing is not nearly as significant as it once was. I mean, are any of these cards substantially helping us? Not that much. That is a lot of base power to go with the damage, though. You are potentially another finisher. So you damage an enemy by 3. If you kill an enemy, you can then damage someone by 2. If that kills an enemy, you can damage someone by 1. So it means at maximum 6 damage, 9 power, so your maximum of 15. We play you early, you have time to get boosted up, and then we finish with the order and still get the 3 damage. Just not sure we're going to have... I think we have so many early round plays that we are not really going to have enough time to squeeze you in early. But I question that a little bit. I mean, minimum it's worth 8 points, which is still not terrible, but it says minimum. I think the copy... I don't know if the copy we create is 1 power or the increased base power of 3 here. So it does somewhat affect the value of the Nekker. Your floor is 9. Your floor is 8. Oh, no, your floor is really 12. So I think it's still Falibor. Not necessarily all that synergistic with all the other stuff we're trying to do with this deck, but we have, at the very least, avoided having to spend energy. And as I said, well, at some point, either the most distant corner of the screen, which I am not wearing my contacts or glasses to see, and therefore is actually too blurry for me to read unless I move on over. And physically lean over toward it. Maybe that's why it was perhaps 49 all along. I just didn't even realize. But that is a little more concerning of a number, because that is potentially even the amount we need to take on this elite battle. Hopefully not. But we still have one more normal battle and one event before then. Okay, Highborn Vampire, there is definitely a hard version of this encounter. Is this it, though? It is not. It would appear. Pretty sure it usually shows when you hover over it like that. Yeah, it's not. Give a random non-bleeding enemy unit bleeding 1, then increase bleeding duration on all enemy units by 1, cooldown 2. Is the difference between hard and normal just the cooldown? Is it usually every turn? I feel like that might be the case, in which case, I mean, that's half the power that it would normally be. So, lots of bleeding, increase the duration of bleeding on all enemy units by 1. So, bleeding, and then that bleeding just never goes away, pretty much. So, I mean, if we're boosting by 1 every turn on most of our units, then that may not be that much of an issue. So we can basically just counteract the bleeding, but this is the risk that we did run by adding several cards that deal damage and do not contribute toward all the boosts, is that if you happen to draw into them, then I mean, we can mulligan both of them, and then still a chance we draw back into them. But I think that's... This is more damage, less power. More power, less damage, at least for single target. It potentially could be more damage if we can chain it across multiple enemies. Let's get rid of you. Right, Selkirk is damage as well. He is probably a better replacement for the Ifrit because he has more high-end potential for damage. So he takes longer to build up, but he does synergize more with our boosts. Falibor could potentially soften up a target for Selkirk to more easily duel it, even if he doesn't get the death blow. Which means we're not everything or nothing on the Falibor death blow. Stennis is okay, but not amazing. Okay, Betsy's more damage. Wow. So now we've added several cards that deal damage. and in some cases do not directly contribute toward boosting, and we have all of them in our hand right now. So that's the risk we run with that. We do, of course, still have the magnifying spyglass, so we can guarantee that we draw into some other stuff, fortunately. But otherwise, that would have been, I think, a pretty significant concern. I think what we want here is probably Ramon, so we can create a second Temerian Drummer. We probably want AGLAIS, of course, and we probably want Regis. So I think it's going to be 1, 2, and 3. And nothing for us to hit initially with our damaging cards as well. And all these are damage on deploy, so they're useless if we play them turn 1. So I think that means it probably has to be Selkirk. It's a little painful, because he's not going to get boosted immediately, so he could get targeted here. In normal circumstances, you would probably like to cleanse him to give him a little more of a boost, get him more out of removal range, and if you feel like you need to use him early, then that way at least you're getting some value out of him. But we are pinched for energy because we have an elite battle coming up immediately after this. We know they're going to hit us with bleed. Ah, Philippe.
Let us put an end to this nonsense, this farce.
Let's immediately destroy Philippe with Selkirk. It's worth it. Because he's going to damage a unit by 1 every turn. If it has a status, he's going to damage that enemy by 2. And they're going to basically give us non-stop bleed. So I think that's definitely worth trying to shut you down. And we are, of course, thinking about using Ramon into another Temerian Drummer on this turn. And that's going to mean that, yeah, we can boost Selkirk, but it's not going to make a huge difference. This is worth it, though. I think it's still worth it. That is a very powerful engine that we are shutting down. And technically speaking, if the bleed is never going to go away, boosting a bleeding unit that we don't have any need for long-term is just allowing them to get more value out of the bleed. So technically speaking, letting Selkirk die from bleed is the right play. And they are going to, of course, deal additional bleeding. It's one Detloff-themed card for another Detloff-themed... Oh, indirectly Detloff-themed, okay? I suppose we could have Ifrited to destroy Philippe as well, but I was concerned about the bleed on Selkirk just continuing to whittle away at his power, and before the bleed actually took hold and dealt any damage to him, why not sneak in that order? So at this point, we would like to not be in the Blood Moon row, although we like these boosts, of course, but I think we can almost chain a double death blow. We can at least get a 1 death blow here and decent damage there. So that is something. But, yeah. Is that reason enough to go Falbor here, or do we want to try to save him for higher priority targets? Because these are not exactly going to be doing much of anything long term. We do still have other sources of damage later on, so yeah, I think we're okay with this. It's not terrible. It's not the best possible, but it's not terrible. And that means we can go Temerian Drummer to boost up Falbor on our next turn. That's an engine that we would like to shut down. And it will get boosted a bit here. So, 5 damage drops you to 4. 4 damage. Or rather, 5 damage drops you to 3. We're going to get boosted again at the end of their turn, so they'll be 4. So we'll have just enough to remove you if we prioritize double damage here and delay the Temerian Drummer. I mean, it's gaining 1 point per turn versus denying them 1 point per turn. In this case, we gain 1 point per turn immediately. In this case, we lose 1 point per turn for them with a slight delay. So technically, this is still more efficient.
Army's a waste of time for one like
It does mean this is now going to be out of removal range, though. That we can destroy, though. And we will.
A superb specimen, truly.
Ooh. Okay, that's a boosting target. We actually don't have too many of those, because we got all of our damaging cards instead, so we would like to put you next to Sumerian Drummer. But I think we would still like to shut you down, because you're going to get boosted every time they deal a status, and that's going to happen very, very frequently. I mean, you could be worth Regising, but maybe we leave you alive, and this will be the Regis target. I think that makes sense. Yeah, shut you down, leave just one engine for them to develop, and we steal all the power from that engine. So with 5 damage, we can destroy you here. So let's do that. And again, technically, cards that are bleeding may just opt to keep bleeding if they've already served their primary purpose. Okay, Catechin goes wide. This actually would have been great for Thalabor now, but of course he's already done his thing. So this is a card that we actually don't want to destroy. So let's go Adurnian Mauler here. That is a card that we want to boost up, of course.
If I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning.
So we'd like for it to be probably Betsy next turn. Then, of course, the last 3 cards that we tend to have, AGLAIS, Regis, and Pit Fighter. We've seen that combo before. Okay, Oriana, that... Ooh. One of these should get destroyed, the other one we're going to want to steal boost from. Because you get boosted by the number of bleeding enemy units. I'm actually surprised that number is not higher. 2 damage, 4 damage is enough. I think we still remove Oriana. Technically, she may get bigger than Garcane would, but we can't afford to allow them to have 2 engines. So it means Regis is going to be a little bit smaller, probably, but we're going to make sure that the one card that they have the chance to boost up is a card that we're stealing all the power from. So I think we live with that. And this Temerian Drummer is going to get destroyed. But I think we can live with that. So we still have our very big finishers here. Okay, what are they going for? It might even be you. It is. Means now you're going to get destroyed. Fortunately, we've used this order ability, so we don't care. I mean, obviously we still like the boost, but it's not as valuable anymore as it once was. So at this point, we're looking for, is it a Pit Fighter, or is it a Regis, or is it an AGLAIS? I'd like to probably wait 1 turn for Regis. So it's really either you or you, and I think generally we've gone for Pit Fighter in this situation. We have seen the situation before. So this is, of course, at this point, a pretty humongous point slam. 26 points from 1 unit is pretty sweet. Then it's Regis, and then it's AGLAIS. So Regis is not necessarily completely safe at 6 power, because as we have just seen, they do have some damage. But one would hope he can survive long enough to steal the 6 points of boost on this Garcane. It's not a huge number, but it's obviously something. Protoflutter will actually get a fair number of boosts as well. Probably not as much as that, though. Okay, so this is +7, whereas you are +3. And you are +1, so it's definitely still you. And then it's AGLAIS. Put her down over here. 13-point boost. And with that much of a margin, I'm thinking we should be fine. Gale, if Gale got the death blow on Pit Fighter, that'd be amazing, but fortunately he will not. Okay, so normal difficulty, higher vampire down. That might be the first time we've seen a normal difficulty version of her. It feels like every time we've seen her in the past, she's always been high difficulty. Ooh. Interesting options here. Witch Apprentice. If we have 25 points or more, it gets boosted by 2 every turn. It's nice. Doesn't require that we have any specific units next to it. And it is boost-centric. Seen plenty of Nekkers before. But Kira. Give vitality to all allied units on this row for the duration equal to their base power. That's pretty insane. Use that when you have a Pit Fighter in the row. So what, at this point, like 29, I think? 29 turns of vitality. Yeah, I don't think you're ever gonna have enough time to benefit from all those turns of vitality, but theoretically this is worth a ton. Out of curiosity, removal, we could get rid of one of those damaging cards that we added. I think adding Kira is too big of an opportunity to turn down. She's even slightly higher base power than usual. Trick with her is the timing. You want to have a lot of units on the board so that she gets more value, but on the other hand, if you wait too long to get those
face
cards...
the Bloodkin in combat and live to tell the tale. Truly a testament to my skill. And luck, let's be honest.
So, yeah, you want to wait until you have some units on the board, but if you wait too long, then suddenly you do not have the time to benefit from much or any of that vitality. So now it's an event. We don't know what this is. We just really don't want it to take away energy from us. Because we are about to go into this elite battle, and then we can restore some energy. And then from there, we are possibly looking to go event, and boss. Or maybe boss, event, or rather a normal battle, event, boss. But let's see what this is. That doesn't sound promising, but it's a hidden cache that might actually be good. On a particularly stormy day, I don't think we've seen this before, you take shelter in a cave near a mountaintop. To your surprise, it seems the cave is used to store cargo, as there are barrels and crates neatly organized all around. Probably stolen. Curious, you browse the wares, and one item in particular grabs your attention. It's the Traveling Priestess. Spawn and play one of Alzur's spells. I mean, it's okay. It's a treasure. But it has seemed like, we've seen it in the past as a treasure option, it has always seemed like it is substantially weaker than the other treasures. I don't know if it gives you only the choice of spawning and playing one of the spells that we've selected on this specific run, or if it could be any spell at all, even including ones that we've not yet unlocked, in which case maybe there are some really high energy cost spells that we could get, in which case, alright, you know, it's a 5-point body plus maybe 8+ points on the spell, and that's, you know, 13's, it's not bad, certainly not bad. But at this point, we've made some serious upgrades to our deck, so I'm still not sure even in that situation if it would be a card that we choose over other alternatives. Or maybe it's, you know, a random 3 amongst all the possible spells, and, you know, maybe you luck out, maybe you don't, with the ones that are presented to you. So I am a little tempted to just say thanks but no thanks and leave. Guess we'll give it a shot. Except I really should have assumed that was the other reason why I was thinking we might not want to do it, because almost every single time we've encountered an event like this, yes, it presents you with the opportunity to get a good card. On the other hand, it's going to cost you something like energy or some other downside, like wounds, and we really just shouldn't have taken it. It was a marginal upgrade, if that. If that. And to pay 25 energy. Okay, well, I mean, let's see what it says. Finders keepers, you say to yourself, smiling, then you take the treasure. It's a trap! A spiked log swings down from the ceiling and hurtles toward you. We can block it to lose energy, or we can fall down and hurt ourselves in the process. Neither one of these things we want to see right now. Energy might actually be more disposable. Just because we know we're going to get energy after the elite battle, it means we're going to have, what, 23 for the elite battle? That is very, man. I really didn't want to take it. The only reason I took it was because we'd never seen this encounter before, so I felt obliged to do so. I really didn't want it. This is why this pains me even more. But I think we have to do this. Quickly, you reach out and cast a spell, stopping the sharpened spikes inches from your face. A close call, and one that we just should not have bothered to have done at all. Don't know who this elite battle is going to be, but we shall see. It's been a really long time since we've seen this guy. I don't even remember what he does. He might even be the first elite we ever encountered. At the end of your turn, damage a random enemy unit by 1. Increase damage by 1 for every missing chapter enforcer. And they have a bunch of them here. Okay, we cannot afford to let this chapter illuminator exist. Okay, so basically, I remember the deal with him is that he has these 4 units here that have strong passive abilities that give a little bit of value over time. So on one hand, you destroy them, you deny him that kind of long-term value. On the other hand, by doing so, you power up his leader ability. So it's a trade-off. What is worth more to you? Destroying these guys and shutting this down, or minimizing the damage that you receive? And I think the answer is probably, at least in some cases, destroying these guys. We cannot afford to lose any additional energy. I think we need to destroy this, unless we think we can get the job done without using any spells at all. So maybe this is not urgent, per se. But we want to have something that can damage you and destroy you. If we find ourselves in need of using a spell, then we can destroy you first and then use the spell. Don't want to play anything in the range row, but that's probably avoidable for the most part, I would think. This is the most obvious. Destroy it early, otherwise it gets so highly boosted that you aren't going to be able to shut it down. Unless we accept that this will get highly boosted and we use that as the target for Regis. Maybe that's fine. We can leave you alive and steal your power with Regis. We can wait to destroy you, and in doing so, minimize the damage from the leader ability a little bit until we find ourselves in need of using a spell. We just need to make sure that we have a unit that can damage you and destroy you when needed immediately. You, we can just avoid by playing stuff in the melee row. You get us to draw a card, which, technically speaking, means that the right way to go about doing that is similar to this Illuminator. You try to delay this as much as possible, because the longer we go without killing these guys, the more time we are minimizing the damage from this leader ability. But if we, for example, destroy this on our last turn, that means we'll draw another card, still the same benefit that we would have gotten if we had done that. I mean, sure, there's a chance the card you draw into is one that is an engine that takes time to develop, but we'll live with that if that happens. And then that means you only have 1, or if you're drawing a card, 2 turns. I guess, no, he has the same amount of cards, so 1 turn in which he has 1 extra damage. So that's, I think, what we're looking for. I don't remember what cards he plays at all. So we do want some damage. We do definitely want some damage, and we don't yet have any, unless Traveling Priestess gives us some, but this is technically a spell. Even if we're not using our Owls of Sun to make it happen. I'm starting to see a little bit more of the value of Traveling Priestess, because not only is it she plays for, I mean, yes, it's still not a huge point total, but in some ways it's basically like a way of avoiding having to expend energy to use a spell. And then you just get 5-point body in addition to that. But again, I don't know exactly what selection of spells we get access to. But alas, let us... Zoltan is worth a lot of points. 12. But it doesn't give damage, and we don't have that right now, unless Traveling Priestess gives us it, but we don't want to use this first, because we want to get rid of the card they have that removes energy when we use a spell before we use this. So I think it is still going to be getting rid of you and getting rid of you. And Eternian Mauler is good, because that can help us set up some damage here. Let's make sure that we draw into... We are going to want Regis. We have AGLAIS already? We have AGLAIS already. So that is not a card that we need to draw into. We'd like damage. We'd like something that can give us a big burst of damage, which would mean One-Eyed Betsy. Even if we wait until our next turn. I don't know. Order operations wise, if One-Eyed Betsy's deploy ability triggers before this boost happens, if it does, we have enough damage to destroy you. If it doesn't, you're going to hang on by 1 power, which stinks. Usually in multiplayer Gwent, deploy abilities are the thing that activates first, but again, Rogue Mage, multiplayer Gwent, some of those subtleties are not always the same. So I think it might still be... Oh, or we can go Ifrit. It's just... Definitely that first, I think. It's going to be 1 to remove you as quickly as possible. Then... 2? 3? Or 2, 3? You have a Temerian Drummer. Does work well with Ramon. Is it you? Or is it you? I think you might still be better. I think you are. So, boom, boom, boom. And then play this to start setting up damage, because we do not yet have the Ifrit to take you out.
Could have settled this amicably.
You want to play as many things in the melee row as possible. So what units do they, and other cards do they play? Oh. And that's their leader ability. Damage all enemy units with power different than base 2. I mean, it's like a multiple of 2? Well, now it's this. We do destroy you, and although it means 1 more point of damage every turn from this, it means 1 less boost for you. So it's, you know, it's a question of that trade-off. What do you prefer? I mean, technically, I suppose it is a net 0 difference. No, we weren't going to destroy you. We were going to destroy this. This. Yeah, wait. What? We didn't. We determined we were going to let this guy get boosted so we could seal him with the power with Regis. Okay, maybe we didn't need this quite as quickly as we set it up, but still like playing this first. So we can go Temerian Drummer. And you should both be 4 power, which might mean that this doesn't deal any damage, but I'm not entirely sure how to interpret the wording on this. Yeah, it just doesn't work, unless they deal damage elsewhere, which with Nithral they may be able to do. We will destroy Nithral with our Mage Ifrit, I think. Okay. I think. You will get hit by the Tormentor, but you will not, again, because you'll get boosted back up to 4. So, yes. Let's do this. And next turn, maybe Kira. Again, it's that balancing act of the longer we wait, the more units there are for her to boost. But on the other hand, the less time there is for them to receive the Vitality. Okay, now we're going to draw into a Guardian, which is unfortunate, because that is a bad card. It's a 3 power card that is pretty useless to us. Is it you? And one thing we would like to do is still be able to take you down eventually. Would have been the use for Ifrit. But instead we shut down some of their damage. Usually you'd want to go Trident Tree soon. But we're trying to get this Mauler boosted up. He's just perpetually going to stay at 3 power on our turns, 4 power on their turn to avoid the Tormentor. This is cooldown 6? They've really just not used it yet? I guess they just haven't used it yet. Trying to get more cards on a non-factor to number. Do really want more damage, though. I mean, Kira does technically help us make that happen. It's going to actually get you up to 5 at the end of our turn, which means you would get hit by the Tormentor. I think we want to get Shrine of Infantry down here before we play Kira. Let's do this. Then it's going to be Kira, I think. I think that's maybe the balance we're looking for. That's unfortunate. Who are they locking? Okay, Shrine of Infantry is not going to be all that useful to us. Why is that? Oh, like why is the cooldown 2? It said cooldown 6. Reduce it for every chapter enforcer they have, and they do still have all of them at the moment. So there's Regis. That's the last card that we guaranteed we were going to draw into. I'd actually love Valibor. Death Blow. Remove shield. And then destroy with traveling priestess, because then we're okay with using spells at that point. But I think it... I really wish still had Trident Infantry was why we felt okay about using Kira on that turn, or on this turn, would have been. But, I mean, yes, Pit Fighter would obviously get a huge chunk of Vitality. It's overkill Vitality, but it's still a lot of turns. That's every remaining turn we're getting the Vitality. I don't love playing them this early, though, because I don't remember what, if any, ways they might have to shut down highly boosted cards. Tall removal. Like a Villain Threaten Mirth would obviously immediately destroy, or very soon destroy him. So I'd rather not take that kind of risk. Like, do they have Villain Threaten Mirth? Probably not. They might have something similar. Well, then again, don't have many alternatives here. It's really either Kira or you. Let's do it.
I am the thing in the pit.
Please don't go after it. So that's exactly what I just said.
An interesting choice.
Exactly what I just said. Ah! Okay, that stinks. A whole freaking lot. Goodness gracious. Alright, well now it is definitely Kira. Kids, that's why you wait to play your finishers until the end of the match, so your opponent doesn't have the chance to counter them. Okay, should still have time to get decent value out of Kira. We will not have additional damage unless it's coming from Traveling Priestess. That does complicate matters. We're trying to get rid of you. Well, assuming they use Tormentor, I think the Dirty Mauler will not have the damage to take you out. If they choose not to for whatever reason, then we will have enough, but I doubt that'll be the case. We are... Yeah, there it is. Oh, now you're gonna steal it? We're in serious trouble. We're in serious trouble. This run is very close to ending if we don't find a way to rescue it. So, I mean, like, this power boost is, or this power steal is not going to be sufficient enough to turn the tide. Losing that Pit Fighter was an absolutely substantial loss and may have single-handedly lost us the game. AGLAIS will help, yes, but we do need to start bringing out spells and settling for whatever the consequences of those are. We may deal overkill damage with Thunder and destroy you as well. If so, so be it. So we even lost you. It's our only way of dealing damage is either you or you. Okay. Did that subtract additional energy from us? I don't believe that it did, because I think by destroying immediately the Chapter Illuminator, it prevented that ability from triggering when we use that ability. We are obviously just about out of energy here. So, makes me really mad when I say exactly why we shouldn't do something, and I'm always very hesitant to do it, and then do it anyway, and then immediately what I predict will happen ends up happening. This is obviously what just happened with Pit Fighter. Also what happened with picking up the Traveling Priestess. So, kicking myself for those. They are ultimately just silly mistakes. But now we can use Traveling Priestess and not have to worry about losing the energy. So I think we do go this route now and see if we can salvage something out of her. So it is specifically the spells that we have. So we can remove you. Guaranteed. And guaranteed remove your shield. Which is why that's somewhat intriguing. Get some overkill damage on Kieran. And then we would still need to use energy to damage you, and minimum is 4. We may still not have enough. Depends. I think we have to try. Breaks the shield. Oh, yeah, they have tons of ways. Tons of ways to destroy cards. So, you know, maybe they would have found a way to destroy Pit Fighter anyway, but obviously we would have played him at or near the end of the match. So, perhaps not. Now it's Guardian, just because it's not a concern if this gets shut down. But now we need to do this. Really need 6 damage here. It is, okay. Thank goodness. Draw into Seltkirk. Becomes a card we can play next to Sumerian Drummer. So that is our next play. And with that, we can... I mean, they might destroy Sumerian Drummer with their leader ability, but I'm not sure who we're going to go after. Poison. Now we go Seltkirk. Morale is more poison to remove you. We got at least 1 turn out of this.
Too much. Dies too soon.
We'll get 1 more turn of poison from him, right? Yeah, same as multiplayer Gwent. So we should probably get rid of you with Seltkirk. I believe you're the highest priority here. Yeah, you're the only card that, other than you, that could potentially still do stuff. So, we go Regis. We really hope that he does not get targeted. So we would like to steal your boosts and take you out. And AGLAIS as a finisher is still worth a lot of points. We actually have last say here because we drew the card when we destroyed one of their, whatever they're called, one of the chapter enforcers. So I think it's close enough, dare I say, that we can wait to see if we have to use our energy. We may not need to spend here. That's on cooldown. So Synthesis Blaze does not have time to use those order abilities. So that's great for us. And that means we can absorb these boosts. And that means AGLAIS is definitely enough here.
Lie still. You've not yet
Technically,
recovered.
should have gone AGLAIS first and then still in the boost. Would have been worth a couple more points then. But it's good enough. But oh man, was that painful. Was that painful or what? I mean, really the biggest downside was all the energy that it cost us before this encounter, because we only spent, what was it, 12? It's only 12 or something like that in this encounter, which is not ridiculous. What happens if we boost AGLAIS further? Start of the game, boost self by 3, that's the same. Deploy, remove the boost from an allied unit and boost self by that amount. Whoa! Double the amount of boost on self. Boost self by 1 whenever you play a card. So it's that deploy part. So we wait to play at the very end of the match. And basically you want to have one other card that you have at least one other card that you've invested a lot of boosts in, which of course we're already doing with this deck. Something like a Trident Infantry, an Adurnian Mauler, a Selkirk, and then once it's already used its order ability, or in the case of Temerian Drummer, once you just feel like, well, I mean, technically you don't need base power on Temerian Drummer, so then you just absorb those boosts, and it's a way of, once again, getting the additional value on those boosts. So, I mean, that's definitely going to be better, I think, than the Hedge Knight, which is just a 6 power unit that starts on the board with 6 armor, but that's not very helpful, I don't think. So, should, I think, still be beneficial. That AGLAIS upgrade there.
Scurry off, chapter vermin. Return to your short-sighted oligarchs. I will not be bound by their inane regulations.
Okay, but now, at this point, I think we need to go. Power for energy. Events. No risks that could potentially cost us energy. That's still, we will still continue to feel the consequences of that event for the remainder of this run, because it's going to affect how much energy we have for this boss battle, because it's not going to be much. If we do find a way to get more energy back from one of these, that might be really helpful, but we definitely can't afford to go to this battle, otherwise we risk using, perhaps, the last of our energy. Could duplicate a card, and we might have something that's good that would be worth duplicating, but no, we can't afford to pass up on this opportunity, because 32 energy is what we'll have, and that is still not much. How much did it cost us? It was, what, 20? 20 energy to get a card that we didn't necessarily even want? But as for these events, Old Grave, I don't think we've seen this either. Find an old mausoleum hidden amid a tangle of shrubbery. A shrubbery? As you descend into the crypt, you find some knights who say neat. And a likeness for a formidable-looking warrior carved into a stone sarcophagus. Long ago, this man was a hero. Now, forgotten. We can blunder and take... I mean, I was just saying that we definitely don't want to take anything that has a downside to it, because at this point, there's no real time to negate those downsides. On the other hand, Horn of Plenty is fantastic with a boosting-centric deck like the one that we're using here. It basically doubles the value of every boost that we receive. It is pretty huge. However, are we willing... Are we willing to add a curse to make that happen? Losing energy. Oh boy. That's not something we want at this point. It's not immediate, but if we draw into it, it happens. Now, if we have something like the Magnifying Spyglass, what we could do is, if we draw into that curse, we can mulligan it away. We only have one more battle, it's the boss. If we draw into it immediately, we can mulligan it away at the start of the match. And then we will draw into one additional card. Still low probability that it will be this. And then after we draw into that card, we can, after that, guarantee the next 3 cards that we draw with Magnifying Spyglass, which means there's only 3 cards total. 3 cards total? Wait, 1, 2, 4... No, 2 cards total that we cannot control the card draw of, right? So the first card that we draw at the beginning of the match, once we've already selected our starting hand, that we get before we can activate Magnifying Spyglass. Then Magnifying Spyglass controls card draw number 2, 3, and 4. And then we only draw 1 more after that, right? So it's 10 cards total, or is it 2 more than that? So it's either 2 or 3 cards that we can't control. And with 1, 2, 3, 4... 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. It's 3 cards, right? Because I'm pretty sure we start with 4 and then we draw into the 1 immediately, because we always have a 5-card hand. So yeah. That means we've 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 17 cards. We'll have 5 of those in hand, so it means our deck will have 12 cards in it. Which means we have a 1 out of 12 chance of drawing into the curse. Technically, we'll have 13 cards once we add this curse. We'll have a 1 in 13 chance of drawing into it the first time. Then we'll have a 1 in 12 chance, then a 1 in 11 chance. I mean, we can do the math if we want to. We can do the math to figure out what the percentage chance of that actually being a thing would be. So that means it's what? I know I got them, for what it's worth, we had similar math that we tried to do last time. I'm pretty sure I got it wrong. The right answer was 9.1 for that, I believe. But, Vids, how do you remember? Did the math immediately afterward, okay? Corrected the math immediately afterward. For this one, it is the way that we tried to do the math last time that was wrong, but is right this time. So it's, the chance of not getting it, -1. Right? So it's, we said, 12 out of 13. Here, I'll do the math where you can see it. 12 divided by 13. Then it is 11. That's not an 11. Divided by 12. Times 10. Divided by 11. So that's our chance of being fine. So if we do 1 minus this. So it's a 23.07% chance that we draw into that curse. As things currently stand. How do we feel about that? 23% chance of this backfiring on us in favor of getting a card that is fantastic. That is guaranteed to be fantastic. I think we actually take it. Assuming that's the only downside. You find treasure adorning the chamber. After a moment to ponder, you conclude that the dead do not need such trinkets, and take it for yourself. We will get cursed. And I doubt we'll have the chance to remove this. But as we were just saying, in theory, if my math is correct, it's a 23-ish% chance of that happening. What do we have here? Fight Club. We've seen it before, and I don't think we have any control over what happens here. And I'm pretty sure I've heard people say that this is rigged and there's no way to ever get this right, but let's see. What is the deal? As you make your way through the alleys of a town, you hear the roar of a frenzied crowd. Intrigued, you follow the sound to a stable where a group of men cheer as 2 topless fighters punch each other into bloodied pulps. What's this? You go on to ask before the ringmaster cuts you off. No questions! You shrug. Fair enough. And stick around to watch the next bout. We can... Okay, at least... You know, we're gambling and maybe upgrading a unit. It's not like, fortunately, it's not as if we're at risk of losing energy. I think downside is we get nothing. As the previous loser's limp body is dragged away, the ringmaster shouts, "Who's it gonna be? The champion, Kazuko, or the brave challenger? Place your bets!" Okay, so champion has a higher chance of a smaller reward. Challenger has a lower chance of a higher reward. Once again, you could do the expected value of this. This is, technically speaking, the expected value of this is, what, 3? And the expected value of this is 2.1. Mathematically speaking, this is better. Technically speaking. Obviously, on average. Well, no, not on average. Expected value is probability times expected, times what the value would be if it happens. So 10 times 0.3 is 3. 3 times 0.7 is 2.1. So over the course of a large sample size, this is worth more than this is. Obviously, this is more likely to happen than this is. So this is still lower risk, lower reward, higher risk, higher reward. So I suppose it makes sense. But I think at this point I mean, if we get a boost, we get a boost, but... Fight was brutal. Skin was split, bones were broken, and teeth lost. And to the surprise to no one, hey, the champion won, we actually got it. So we get to choose which card we upgrade. Man, Pitfinder is now at 35, which is insane. I think we might want it to be Regis. Just because, or no, it should be Selkirk. Selkirk, that means his dual ability is immediately stronger. It's gonna say Regis just so that he's less vulnerable to getting destroyed when we have that one turn before he can use his order ability, but I think for the most part, that's been okay thus far. Selkirk, though, means guaranteed, right off the bat, he is substantially stronger than he would otherwise be, so I think we go that route. Seems you have a keen eye for fighting prowess. You collect your winnings, bid the ringmaster a good day, and leave. Alright, so that one worked out well. Again, it's all just that nasty cave plunder that I really didn't want to do, but felt obliged to do. That is going to be the difference maker here. Either we can just barely scrape by with only 32 energy going into this one, or we won't. But only one way to find out. Let's get started. I do not remember. I do not remember that when it comes zooming into a picture like that, it shakes from side to side. That should not be that funny, but it is. Okay, so we've only faced this guy once before, so I don't remember him well. Order to destroy an allied unit, cooldown 3, so it's Death Wish of sorts. Similar to Hive Mind. Whenever a unit other than tentacle is destroyed during your turn, spawn a tentacle on a random allied row and boosted by the destroyed unit's base power. So that tentacle starts off weak, but if they continue to create more tentacles, or well, no, it starts off weak, but you know it's gaining power based on the destroyed unit's power. So what they're going to try to do is draw into or destroy this Plague Maiden. That'll make an 8 power tentacle and spawn in a bunch of rats, 7 rats on that row. I mean, that's going to clog them for what it's worth. I'm pretty sure. Didn't we last time we fought this guy see them clog themselves and we deliberately let them clog themselves and eventually they ran out of space and couldn't play anything on their last turn or two? I'm pretty sure that we did that. Don't they also have like poison or toxin or something? Infected. Whenever an infected unit receives the status again, damage it by half its current power, ignoring armor. So in that way, they can counter us a bit. We have a really highly boosted card that is problematic. So Pit Fighter, we're gonna have to be careful playing you at the very end, unlike the elite battle that we had before, where we threw you down way too early. And similarly with AGLAIS, we definitely want to wait to play you until the very end. Reaches higher vampire. We start off pretty weak, but then obviously once we use the boost, you can potentially get much bigger. Traveling priestess, we might hold on to you because we have such little energy right now. That'd be kind of nice to have that option. I think we might dump Stennis. Silver recruit. Wow. Okay. Okay, so no curse. That means that immediately the probability of drawing into curse is lower, because that was one of the few times where it could have happened. And now that we can use Magnifying Spyglass, we can guarantee that the next 3 cards we draw will not be curse. So if we do this, what do we want? We probably still want Kira, even if our opponent is a little anti-boost. We definitely want AGLAIS, of course, and we presumably would like Seltkirk as well. AGLAIS is going to want to swipe the boost from someone, and it would ideally be Seltkirk. So I think we might go Seltkirk first, then Kira, then AGLAIS. I know we do have a potential boosting recipient in, Tournament of Infantry. I'm realizing that we ideally would have a Temerian Drummer to go along with Ramon, which we do not have. We could use him to create another Tribe of Infantry that's not ideal, or it's not perfect. Of course, it does give us an extra boosting target. The problem is we don't have that much in the way of boost-giving engines. Stennis can give boost, but only does it once, and Traveling Priestess, same thing, unless we go for her into Portal, which I'm tempted to do early. I think we'll still... Problem with Ramon is, it's either Ramon, Tribe of Infantry, turn 1, or it's Tribe of Infantry, turn 1, wait a really long time until we draw into Seltkirk, then Kira, then AGLAIS, and see if we happen to draw into a Temerian Drummer after that, but that is a big risk to take when we might just quite literally brick Ramon altogether. So I think we have to go Ramon into Trident Infantry here. I think we kind of do. And don't we... Whenever an ally unit is boosted, give it Vitality. Man, we really wanted to get more boost than this. Oh, that stinks so badly. We're gonna go Traveling Priestess pretty early here, I think. Let's do this, yes. But I might even Portal on turn 1. And see if we can get something like Anna Stranger would be amazing. So let's do this.
Leave the lordling dogs in the lake, beg for mercy.
Awaiting your orders.
And we'll do this. And we're looking for a source of boosts. Really want a source of boosts. Xavier does boost himself. He does not boost other cards, but he does boost himself. Whenever we play unit, gain 1 armor. At the end of your turn, if he has armor, boost self by 1, which means he'll gain vitality every turn as well. Of course, that means we would like to have played him before we played all the other guys, but didn't know that was going to end up happening. If you remove a unit's armor and boost self by that amount, if we already had Xavier on the board, that would also be a decent option. This is damage, which just doesn't make a lot of sense for us. So it is going to be Xavier, and not sure if rows matter too much in this case.
Good we fare under King Desmond.
Okay, so I think they have a fair bit of damage. On my ass. Check the highest power unit in this row. Oh, and that can chain. I can't hit the same unit multiple times. So we'll hit Ramon next turn. Then it will potentially hit Trident Infantry again and destroy you. Well, that's why we have another Trident Infantry, I suppose, right? So now we go Selkirk, and that will give you armor, which means you'll get boosted, which means you'll get vitality from Horn of Plenty. Yeah, it just didn't quite work out in a way that was going to benefit from much in the way of Horn of Plenty. We would have liked to go Traveling Priestess soon as well, but I think we do this first. Because you are not really going to be a boosting target after all, it doesn't seem. And we'll get a free spell from Traveling Priestess, which again will likely be... Okay, well now it's going to be in this turn. That was perhaps rather expected. So Selkirk with the infection is concerning. Damage a random infected enemy unit by 1 if there are no infected enemy units. Infect a random enemy unit. I think we might just immediately use this because Selkirk, if we wait and he gets infected again and loses half of its power, then he's substantially weaker. I mean, yes, we'd like to go Kira right about now. We might want to have a Trident Infantry down there first. Might want to go Traveling Priestess into something else first as well. So, again, the timing on Kira is tough, but I think we will at the very least do this, because this is an engine. And they will create more of them, of course. Unfortunately, that is their thing. Their leader ability, but stump ya. And then, is it you or is it you? I think it's actually you. And we'll put you here so that it's less likely that you... Well... In fact, the highest unit. Did they use this card last time we played them? This seems really strong. I feel like I would remember it more. I mean, I remember that they gave us a bunch of infection, but I didn't feel like they had this consistence of a source of that. I don't know. So if we play you or Ramon will get the infection. But you here, you will not get infected for a while. Actually, you're going to get infected, aren't you? So you're going to get double boost from Vitality and from your Barricade ability. So it won't be Selkirk. At least not on this turn. I don't know, man. I don't know, man. Yeah, at the end of your turn, damage random enemy unit by 1, then boost self by 1 if this unit's power is 8 or higher, destroys self. Death Wish, boost allied units by 1. So you want to either destroy a bunch of allied units so that is weaker, or, I mean, it's practically at 8 power already, or you want to destroy it before that happens. It's still going to boost a bunch of cards. Yeah, I don't love that. Ugh, gross. Okay, well, I mean, we can potentially destroy it if we were to use it and go for Masterful Thunder. That still feels like that's not a great option. Feels like there's not a lot we can do to limit the value from this, because we don't have a great way to wipe this melee row of all the rats. So... is it Kira on this turn? Or do we wait on Kira? We might wait on Kira. We might wait on Kira. One more turn and go Traveling Priestess and use Portal instead.
Beauty is all around us, in every living
Looking for boosts. Technically, you can boost yourself. Which does synergize well with the horn. And this does destroy a rat. This can also destroy a rat, but it has more this also has... No, it does not have boosting unless we go range rail. And take one more turn to make it happen. I'm leaning Drowner. We can either destroy a rat or we can weaken you and delay that Death Wish, or that 8 power and then Death Wish longer. I'm not really sure we want to do that. I think we might just want to get rid of a rat. Next is definitely going to be Kira. Okay, now it... Oh, that's a 10... Oh, they destroyed that card to create a tentacle, and in doing so, they boost everything that way anyway. Infect an enemy unit, cooldown 2. That's a card we'd very much like to destroy, but it has a shield, which makes that rather difficult to do. Okay, but it is, I think, still Kira time now. You are boosted by 1. They do not have... I mean, these tentacles, it seems, are going to be the most highly boosted cards. I think a lot of this is going to come down to what's going to be likely a last turn Pit Fighter or last turn AGLAIS. So everything else is going to be pretty significantly damaged here. Fortunately, we do have some big finishers, yes, but all of our engines are getting hurt a lot. So now, why don't we do Zoltan here? And yes, we don't love boosting Thrive, so it makes it harder to subsequently boost Thrive the way that you normally boost Thrive. Maybe for that, well, no, we're going to do Cure anyway. We're going to do Cure anyway, what am I saying?
And now something special.
Now we get a little bit of damage from this Trident Infantry, thankfully. Kashe will spawn in more Indriga Larva. Which are more Thrive units. Okay, I mean, now I think it probably is still going to be, at this point, Zoltan or Stennis on Trident Infantry. Well, we'd prefer to split our boosts across numerous units, right? So we have one highly boosted card. That means the infection is more likely to have a significant toll on it. So I think we probably do go Stennis range, even though I'm trying to kind of let our range row just wither so that the miasma is only hitting us hard in one row and one row alone. But is that reason enough? If we go Stennis and boost you, you become a 7. And you once again become the highest unit, which that avoids other cards taking damage. Might be kind of nice. I don't know. Technically, Stennis range row giving more vitality or more boost across more people means more likely to benefit from that. Well, we still have enough time to benefit from all the vitality on one card if it's a card that does not yet have any boost at all and therefore no vitality, like Kira. Basically, it's a Stennis on Kira. Kira becomes the highest card. I think we might still do it.
Peace is priceless.
She gets vitality. Oh, right, still only 1 vitality. Okay. Yeah, it really would have been nice to go range Stennis in an ideal world, but it is not an ideal world. We don't have that much time left to use order or leader abilities. If we're looking at the powerful ones, it's 6 energy per use, which means we can use 4 of them, and we have 5 turns left if we're including this one right here. It means 1 turn in which we would not be using that ability, and as we've said in the past, I think generally we do like to be a little proactive with this stuff, so that we can more proactively keep pace, because at least initially we didn't have great tempo, but we can now with these 3. Perhaps do a little bit more of that. I think we're still looking at portal here. Was thinking about trying to take out Kashe, but it's not guaranteed, and if we do damage but not destroy you, then suddenly it is very easy for you to trigger that Thrive, and then again, that might clog the road, which means there's something to be said for that, but see what we get here. Ooh, speaking of Thrive, that's what Andrega Larva does, and we spawn an additional copy of it, and that means multiple cards that have Thrive, which means lots of easy ways to proc Horn of Plenty, which is tempting, but so is Nekker. So that's a more targeted 4 charges. It's more vitality, but we can only get boosted by 1 point of vitality per turn, so we already have a lot of that happening between Hira and Horn of Plenty. Nekker could use on Try to Infantry for more damage. Does mean that the vitality is going to become a bit excessive. Maybe we put it on this Try to Infantry. Keep that alive. It may still be Andrega Larva that is technically the best option here. We will trigger the Thrive several times. Yeah? I think we do it. Okay. So that's a card that gains value over time, so we wanted to make sure that we played it relatively early. Yeah, they're spawning in a bunch of units here. They're continuing to do that.
You won't take us alive!
Which means they may run out of space. We kind of like them to do that. Now it is probably Zoltan time. Which means, I mean, again, technically we get the most value from boosting up Pride of Infantry, either there or potentially even here. If we do this, then Pride of Infantry and Ramon are the highest cards, right? So it'll be 5, so it'll be 4. Guess we're still okay with that.
Double save!
Trigger the Thrive, so that's good. And now, again, we've 2 more times that we can use a big spell. I mean, it'd be more opportunities if we mix some cleanses in there, but I think now is not the time to be skimping on our energy. So let's go Portal once again here. Give ourselves time to benefit from it. I mean, technically, especially against this enemy, something to be said for playing units late when there's less time for them to get hindered by the miasma. But let's go Nekker.
Nasty wounds.
She will trigger the Thrives, and we can use her on this occasion. I think we probably will opt to split the boost a little bit between the Trident Infantries. Yes, we're going to hit by the, well, yeah, I mean, if not on our next turn, the turn after that, you are going to get hit by the infection. So I think we just accept that fact and go for the extra damage. And maybe Stennis just so that we get Vitality on you, because you do not currently have Vitality. We need to be a little bit careful with board space here. We're running kind of low. Destroy an enemy unit with 3 or less power, or an infected enemy unit with 6 or something power. Not a huge loss. Not a huge loss, to be honest. Card that they destroyed. Now it is probably Regis Higher Vampire time. They have 6 boosts on you. I believe is their most highly boosted card. Yeah. It's not a huge play, which is in part why we're playing this 1 turn earlier than we have in the past. Pit Fighter is much more susceptible, I think, to getting hindered by the miasma, and likewise with the AGLAIS. So let's save them for the end. And Row shouldn't matter too much here, I don't think. Does trigger Thrive, so that's great. And then we'll trigger the Thrives again with both of these cards, so that's why these Andrega Larvae going to turn into pretty powerful cards. And 2 of them, no less. So 2 more times to use a portal or damage from Thunder. But as I said, I mean, they're close to clogging. They're not quite there yet. They can fit 1 more unit specifically and precisely 1 more unit in their melee row. I think we just let them clog themselves. So let's portal again. This may be the last time we can portal, though, because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards. This will be 6, 7, 8 from these 2. Technically, if we can fit 9 in a row, we should still be fine with portal on our next turn as well, unless they are putting units on our side of the board. We could Drowner and move stuff if we really wanted. Mahakam Defender, if it has a boost, will boost itself every turn. That would have been great if we still had a Nekker charge to make that happen. But we are pretty much out of ways to give boosts here, because that would be a really nice synergy with Horn of Plenty, basically turn into a second Savior. But it's not really sure we have the setup for it. So Synthesis, obviously the highest base power, and at this point in time, for you, 3 base power, 2 damage for 5, trigger Thrive twice, that gets you up to 7, so Synthesis is actually the best. Unless we have a way to boost you, so Synthesis is actually the best. And it triggers Thrive again. Whereas I don't think the other cards were high enough to do that. Okay, Manticore Venom will damage some of our cards, but Regis holds on. Regis does still hold on, which means we can absorb the power from you, like so. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Portal is 9. As long as they don't have a way to create a card on our side of the board, we're fine, and I doubt they will. So the question is, what do we prioritize, Pit Fighter or AGLAIS? I think we go Pit Fighter next and AGLAIS last, because AGLAIS is... obviously you're 35. You are boosted by 22, so you'll get an additional 22. So you are 47, so you are bigger. So, and you will get bigger still after using this portal. Naturally, now we get a Nekker, which would have made the Mahakam Defender a solid option. It may still be best, more power. They have anything left that is highly boosted enough to warrant that, because I'm not sure that they do. Would destroy you. That's 5 damage plus 5-point body for 10. Your 5-point body, 4 points of boost, which means more vitality. It's technically worth more, especially if we're putting it on Trident of Infantry, which gives us extra damage as well. I think Nekker is still the answer. You're obviously 8.
Again.
And actually remove the immunity on Synthesis for this turn if we really want to, but I think we have enough targets here anyway. Not to mention you have the infection, so we might try to give boosts to those who do not already have it. How is this for so long avoided that? Because it just has continued to not be the highest card in the row, and will still not be the highest card in the row. We have... If we boost you again, you won't have enough time to benefit from that vitality, right? So we'll boost you. Then we said Pit Fighter is what we're playing here. So we will not have enough energy to play anything else. We'll have just enough board space to play AGLAIS. We're looking at a 100-point lead here. They still have 2 cards, though. Boost all allied units by 1 is not bad. But we can now play AGLAIS.
Lie still.
Oh, right. I forgot. We're absorbing the boost from someone after that most recent upgrade. Who is the most highly boosted? I believe it is this... Hold on. You guys are base 2, right? So this is plus 8. This is plus 4. This is also plus 8. Yeah. So let's absorb.
Drink this, you'll feel better.
From you, especially because you're the highest unit in this row, so you would get damaged by infection, which is not something we want to have happen to a highly boosted card like that. Then that means AGLAIS is now 33-point boost, so we gain 33 from that. And after the end, we end our turn here, she'll be up to 70. So that means I don't think they'll have a way to catch us here. They can't even play their last card, so we will hold on to beat the boss. Alright, Swamp Monster defeated for the second time around, and I believe that means that we have now we have now made it so that we have all the mutagens we should need here. And okay, let's proceed. As we've seen in the past, in general, when we successfully complete a run, we get a whole bunch of levels. So we are now past level 50, which I believe is the halfway point. Pretty sure we saw an achievement for that pop up. I think I said in the previous run at some point in time that it felt like we were getting close to the end. When I said that, obviously, we're nowhere near reaching level 100, or at least we have quite a ways to go for that. And we've way more difficulty modifiers we can do before we're on whatever the highest difficulty is called. But what I meant when I said that was more so that we've already unlocked all the decks, and we've unlocked most of the key cards. So in that way, we've already played most of the archetypes and leaders that we can use. But obviously, still a little more we can do here. There's still a lot more things to unlock that are things that perhaps we get over the course of a run. So, for example, the Glacial Decanter repeats the first spell you play each battle. So that would benefit you most if you are consistently using one spell per battle, or at least one spell per battle, but obviously if you do multiple spells per battle, every battle you're going to run out of energy pretty quickly. Reinforcements, the Triad Matron at the end of your turn, move self to the rightmost position and boost a unit to the left by 1. It's another 1 point per turn boosting engine. It's a little bit more complicated to make it work than, say, a Temerian Drummer, but has 1 higher base power. Disregard. Deploy gain charges equals the number of boosted allied units. Damage an enemy unit by 1 with that order ability. Charge, start off with 1. So basically, you play him second to last turn, or near the end of the match. And the more boosted cards you have, the more damage he has. And you can deal that damage to 1 unit, or you can spread it across multiple cards if you want. Nathaniel Pastodi, whenever this unit receives a boost, give a random non-bleeding enemy unit bleeding 2. It's actually slightly stronger. It's very similar, but slightly stronger than the multiplayer Gwent version, because it's a non-bleeding enemy unit, which means, sure, you can't load up on tons of bleed damage on one specific enemy, but because you can only deal 1 point of bleed damage per turn, that makes some sense. You're not going to have 50 points of bleeding on one unit that is obviously never going to have 50 turns in which to have that bleeding apply to it, which can happen in Gwent multiplayer, as in you can have it applied to the same card. Not that you can get 50 turns of bleeding to happen, but not that you can actually effectively trigger that 50 turns of bleeding. So in that way, it's better at more efficiently spreading the bleed, but you might find yourself in a situation where every opposing unit already has bleeding, in which case the boosts are no longer all that relevant. But it's basically a Trident of Infantry alternative. More damage, in that you're getting 2 points of damage per boost, but it's spread out over time because it's bleeding, not upfront damage. And Trident of Infantry can destroy a card, whereas immediately, if you just keep on pouring on the boost, whereas as we just said, you can run out of targets to give bleeding to, given how it won't give bleeding to it won't give bleeding to a unit that is already bleeding. Treasure card, Mysterious Puzzle Box, passive, unleash whatever lurks inside. That's ominous. Then we are in progress for Intriguer Warrior. Consume adjacent units and spawn a drone on this row for each insectoid consumed. Gotta imagine that's in the Hive Mind deck. Lusty, destroy all 1-powered units, then boost self by 2 for each unit destroyed. Fantastic finisher if you have a bunch of 1-power cards on the board, if your opponent has 1-power cards on the board. So that's a nice addition for, again, Hive Mind. Then Iteran, this card in multiplayer Gwents is quite divisive because it has some specific use cases where it is just absolutely broken. First time you spawn a unit on your side of the battlefield each turn, spawn a 1-power copy of it in that row and give it doomed, same as it is in multiplayer Gwent. If you have lots of ways to spawn stuff, then you can create extra copies of it, and it's amazing. So there's some serious potential there, and then Mirror Image, we're a little further away from unlocking that, but spawn a 1-power copy of an allied unit on its row. Hold on. Does that mean... Now I'm thinking Hive Mind. Remember when we said we might want to try doing a Hive Mind deck and maximizing our points and seeing if we can get over 1,000? And remember how when we got the Girdle Giant Strength that doubled the power of our Slizzards, and we used those Slizzards to consume Detloff, and Detloff was gaining power every time we did that, that we could then consume another Slizzard that we added to our deck from a place of power, and in doing so, absorb all that power to one Slizzard, double it with Girdle Giant Strength, and get a ginormous amount of points. But if we went truly all in on that strategy, we suspected we could probably break 1,000. if you can do this with mirror image and make a 1 power copy of the Slizzard, I mean, it's still, once it consumes stuff, it's obviously going to be way more than 1 power. Can you create a 1 power copy of Detloff even? And in that case, is it 1 base power? Or is it just damage down to 1 power, in which case if you have a, 20 base power Detloff, but you create a 1 power copy of it, you consume it once, sure, you're only gaining 1 power that time, but then it comes back out as a 20 or a 21 or whatever, based on, how much you've upgraded him, and at that point you just functionally have multiple Detloffs. Or, for that matter, any keycard. I don't know, but that sounds like that could be really broken, and for that reason I understand why it costs 8 energy. Because there's some serious potential there. But, don't let that distract you from how currently we have 3 mutagens. So let's check out the liquid tanks here, and let us experiment.
An acquaintance from years past heard tales of Alzor's experiments and decided to track the mage down. Once a gallant knight, bursting with vigor and in the prime of his youth, he had, like the few humans lucky enough to live so long, become old and frail. Desperately wanting to recapture his long-lost strength, he proffered his body for experimentation. A quick death in pursuit of his wish was better than a slow, pathetic crawl towards the grave, he declared. But Alzor would not have it. He knew full well that the knight's weak frame would not survive the procedure, and did not want to expose a friend to unnecessary suffering. As it was, because of the man's advanced age, the experiment was unlikely to yield beneficial results. Yet the man was insistent, and during their squabble, a thought struck Alzor, something he had somehow not yet contemplated. Instead of injecting his concoctions, why not have the subject ingest a milder blend beforehand, to better prime the body for future, more invasive mutations? And so the mage brewed a diluted mixture of the required herbs into a tea and gave it to the man, curious of the effect it would have. For days, the old knight's health declined as he drifted between lucidity and delirium. But then he recovered. Euphoric with delight, the old man claimed to feel more vigorous than he'd done in decades. But the feeling was not enough to sate his desires. Once he had tasted the intoxicating nectar of vitality, he lusted for more, demanding that Alzor submit him to the entire procedure, no matter the risk. After much debate, Alzor finally agreed. Unfortunately, the experiment ended precisely as he had predicted.
Oof, okay, I mean, not the best outcome. Maybe better than some of the other ones. Hey, we got a little diluted dose that kind of worked, but as Alzor expected, full thing was too much. All right, and with that, we're now, of course, mutagenless, but that marks another successful run, and a successful run that finished off the last of the mutagens that we needed. And so at this point, that means that we have now completed a Bulwark run with every keycard for Bulwark, and I don't imagine there will be any more, as I'm pretty sure when we had not yet unlocked some of them, they were just grayed out here, but we could still tell that there was one that we'd not yet seen. And for Savage Fury, that might come up next year with Melusine, because we've not yet tried using her. And another one of my favorite cards from Gwent multiplayer, so I'm looking forward to giving that one a try. That is likely coming up next. And for Hive Mind, did we just unlock Meve? We might have just unlocked Meve. I think I, for some reason, assumed that we already had her, and so I paid it no mind when I saw it on the unlock screen before, but let's see what her deal is. After every 3 turns, at the end of your turn, boost all allied units by 1, defeat an elite enemy to evolve. So, see, compare that to the other ones here. Yeah, I like that a lot, because normally Meve, I think multiplayer Gwent, again, it's not organized by this system. It's not Hive Mind, Savage Fury, and Bulwark. It's Northern Realms, Nilfgaard, Scoia'tael, Skellige, Monsters, Syndicate. And so, you wouldn't, for example, be able to use Dennis Cronmer, would be a Scoia'tael card, and Barbagalzi, which would be a Monsters card, in the same deck. in most circumstances. So, there are some interesting combinations that are possible in Rogue Mage that would not be possible in Gwent multiplayer. However, the reverse is also true, where normally Queen Meve would be a Northern Realms card, which is generally what most of the Bulwark cards are all about. Like, almost everything from the starting Bulwark deck is a Northern Realms card. It's very boosting centric, things like Trident Infantry, Temerian Drummer, Visigoda, not AGLAIS, but Reynard. It's kind of weird that Reynard is in one archetype and Meve is in the other when they are two buddies. But my point is, Meve is usually in those boosting centric decks, but in this case, in Hivemind, it's all about flooding your rows with as many cards as possible, and then boosting them all with Meve so that cards that start out weak can then become more significant over time. And that's something that we definitely were not doing much of with Detloff. This was more of a, consolidate all of your power into as few units as possible with Slizzards and Detloffs repeatedly. This Shawnee run that we did is a little more of the wide way of doing things, where we would flood our rows with a lot of units and then try to get big deploy abilities from things like Hjalmar, for example, or Morwood if we happen to add it to our deck, and then consume them just so that we could replay them with Shawnee and get that deploy ability again. But wasn't necessarily something that directly meant that we wanted to have more units on the board, but a lot of our deploy abilities, our strongest deploy abilities, were centered around that idea. So it kind of played like that, but for me, it is basically, you don't even need consumption in this case. You're just trying to get as many units on the board as possible, and so generally the fastest way to do that is with things like Rat Swarm, where you just spawn in 4 1-powered cards, get them out there immediately so that Meve has more stuff to boost, and leave them there. Things like Germain, spawn in a bunch of stuff with him, and, of course, there are some cases where if you consume things like the Night Wraith, you'll get more units on the board, so that's obviously still an option. Same with Indrig Egg, so it's not like you have no reason to ever consume, but I like it. I like it. Especially because it's not something that you would normally see in multiplayer Gwents, because most of the Hivemind cards are monsters, and Meve, as I said, is Northern Realms, and so to kind of mix and match those two things together does make me wonder just how effective it could be. I certainly see the use case for it, but I'm very curious to try it. So I think it'll probably still be Melusine with Savage Fury next, and then followed soon thereafter by Meve in Hivemind, but we might mix up the order there. And then I was thinking that we would finish with the totally randomized Chaos deck, and I don't know, at that point I'm kind of curious to hear from you guys in chat and in the comments and YouTube what you think in terms of how much further do you want us to go. In some ways I don't necessarily feel like we have to 100% Rogue Mage, in that, like getting every single achievement. Do we need to do that? I'm not sure that we do. Do we want to reach the canonical end of the game? Yeah, it'd be kind of nice, but on the other hand, perhaps the primary purpose why we're playing the game is not as much for the narrative as much as it's just for trying out all the different possible deck combinations, and that's why we've made a point of going archetype by archetype and key card by key card, and once we've finished one of them, we, for the most part, move on to the next one. So once we've done all of them, does that mean that been there, done that, there's not much else to do? Obviously, there's still other factors that vary from run to run, what enemies you run into, what upgrades you have available to you, and whatnot. And if you do just make a point of running non-stop with the Chaos deck, then obviously every run is definitely going to be different. So, maybe that's the kind of thing that we choose to end up doing, or maybe it's just upping the difficulty every time, as we may increase the maximum difficulty that we're allowed to use after having used 3 mutagens. We might now have the option to up the difficulty even further. So, we'll see. Playing all that stuff by ear a little bit, but again, I think that's something that I'll want to hear from you guys in terms of what is or is not feeling like it'll be of interest, and, if it feels like, maybe Rogue Mage starts to get dull at that point, it just feels like we've done all the big stuff that there is to do, and it starts to get repetitive, then of course that could also be the sign that we want to call it there. But if it feels like, hey, every run feels new and fresh, then maybe we keep going. Again, ultimately, in large part, up to you guys. So let me know what you think.